Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
And I'm your co-host, Kenna.
Okay, Kenna, today we are starting our podcast with me asking you, do you like art?
Art?
Art? Do you like art? I'm sorry, I said it wrong.
Yeah, I like art.
I feel like you're an art person in my head.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what it is, though.
Okay, like, what's your favorite kind of art? Like, what genre or era or whatever?
I mean, like, I love movies.
Oh, film.
Yes, film.
I think you mean film.
I mean, like, yeah, there's some, like, visual art that I feel very moved by, like, but I think, like, there's some art that I've seen that I'm just like, this feels like so either, like, off-putting or, like, it just seems like something that would be put in a rich person's house, like, to keep money in. Like, I watched a TikTok basically being like Damien Hirst is, like, bad art. It's just meant for rich people to, like, have as assets, you know?
Yes, totally.
Basically,
100%.
I'm like, where it's like, I'm like fine art being, like, a way to just, like, kind of, like, maybe launder money. I don't know, like, why rich people buy art.
Yeah. Damien Hirst in particular, I love that you used that example because when Instagram, like, first started, first came out, within, like, months of Instagram first starting years and years ago, I got into an Instagram fight with Damien Hirst. And it ended with him blocking me. I actually, while recording this episode, was like, I wonder if Damien Hirst still has me blocked on Instagram, and I am no longer blocked. So I assume he just unblocked everybody at some point over the past 10 years or whatever, 12 years.
That would have been
Instagram
a cool
existed.
block.
I know. I was kind of hoping I was still blocked so I could screenshot the block. But I remember just making fun of him for the diamond skulls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he responded, and he got really mad at me. So I was a troll. I trolled him, is what happened. Yeah, so that's good that you said Damien Hirst. But, okay, so, like, is there, like, a form of, like, fine art, visual art that you do like? That you're like, I like this stuff, like an artist?
You know, it's like, now that I think I feel like when I'm put on the spot, I can't, like, remember anybody, but yeah. I feel like I've, like, been to, like, when we went to, was it LACMA, and went through the exhibit with it was like...
Was it Pippoletti Wrist?
Yes.
Is her name?
Yeah,
she's
that
cool.
was really cool, because it was like a immersive experience.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah, I remember being there, and there was this tiny, tiny projection on the floor, and it was like 2 inches by 2 inches or something, really, really little. And, you know, I have a terrible memory, but I was like, oh my God, I saw this in high school.
Whoa.
Like, maybe in San Francisco or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you've come back to me 20 years later.
There was, like, a cool room where you could, like, get in the bed, and, like, all the little, like, knickknacks in the room were just so cool.
That was a cool room, yeah.
Like, that was really cool. Like, painter, like, if you're considering, like, okay, you know what's actually weird? Like, you know, like, when you're in, like, middle school or something, you, like, find, like, an artist that you like, I think I was, like, when I was in, like, elementary school, it was, like, Monet. Or something like
yes.
that. Or, like, you know, like, and, like, I don't know, maybe, like, when you get into more, like, punk stuff, you're like, like, art, like, all, you know, like, the art that you see on, like, postcards, or, like, but, like, seeing it in real life, some big artist was, like, really, like, whoa. Like, when I saw Jackson Pollock in real life, I was like, this is fucking wow. Like, I was like, I literally just thought it was, like, paint blobbles, even though, like, I feel like I've read that, like, Jackson Pollock was, like, a CIA asset or some shit.
I actually love this intro because you're inadvertently touching on everything we're going to talk about in this episode, so this is great foreshadowing.
Also, an artist that I had, like, never heard of, but I saw a painting, and I was like, I'm obsessed with this painting, and I have to know the artist, is Yayoi Kusama.
Oh.
Who does all the dots and, like, the infinity rooms.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then there was someone else. Oh, who's the guy who does like blobs of color? Like it's like 3 squares of color.
It's Rothko, I think.
Yes, and
Yes.
I actually saw, because my friend was like, dude, I saw this Rothko, like, I cried. I fucking cried. And I was like, okay, man, like, whatever. And then I go see a fucking Rothko, and I'm like, why are these colors talking to me? Why do I feel this way? It was, like, weirdly moving, and I, like, so many people I feel like have had this experience, and, like, I don't know why. Like, maybe it's just that was put in my brain or something, but like, yeah, sometimes things just like in like the, you know, you're at a museum and you're in the realm to like look at fine art and it like connects. But I've definitely been to like when I lived in Portland, my boyfriend at the time, like he's like an artist, painter, and we went to this like group art show where people were supposed to make like wind chimes. And I hated it so much because I just thought it was like so much like irony. Like there was like a lot of like just stuff where it was just like there was like a cat shit wind chime.
Oh no.
There was one just made out of like Starbucks cups, and like maybe I didn't like, maybe there was like if like an artist statement behind it where I'd be like, oh cool, but like a lot of it just seemed like I was just like really like pretentious,
Cliched, pretentious.
Yeah,
yes.
And like now I feel bad if someone made the cat shit wind chime. And
Kenna just wanted to read your artist statement, that's all.
Yeah, I need to read the artist statement to understand.
Yes.
But just like there was just so I got so mad, and I was just like, all of these suck, and he got so mad at me because I was just like this, because I was also a little bit like, I'm like, this feels really pretentious. It seems like rich people who go to art school, like it doesn't connect with me as like a working class person. And he was just like, well, blah blah blah, like I went to art school, blah blah blah. And I was just like, okay,
yes,
Mr. I went to art school.
I totally
and I don't think that he's like a bad person, but I was just like, I think like I've always been a little bit more like I like, even though like I do like really like heady films, or like I can like take a heady art piece, I'm a little bit like sometimes like the intellectual stuff, I'm just like, can you just bring it, can you just talk to me like I'm in 3rd grade, man? Like,
right. This is really funny because it reminds me of the second worst date I ever went on with somebody who's in a very popular goth band now. But at the date, he was very pretentious. He was a college boy. And I went to college. I went to a private art school, but it was very much like a trade school experience. My school ended up getting sued for preying on low-income working class people. So that gives you some idea of the type of school I went to.
Do you have a BFA?
I have a BFA, yes, I
Gotcha.
do. So he went to like a fancy intellectual school. So, you know, he, first of all, red flag, he was like, oh, you're actually intelligent. And I was like, fuck you. Like, first of all, no, I'm stupid. I'm the stupidest person on the planet, and I deserve to be respected. You know, whatever. I just didn't like that. And then second, he was like, what are your favorite films? And I was like, oh, I don't really watch films. And he was like, well, like, what are your favorite movies? And I was like, oh, Face Off's my favorite movie. And he was like, oh, you're just being a contrarian. Like, what's actually your favorite movie? And I was like, Face Off is literally my favorite movie. It's like a comfort movie. I watched it a bunch as a kid. I really like it. Like, what do you want me to say, Fellini or some shit? And he's like, well, Fellini has some good films. And I was just like, can you stop saying films? I'm miserable.
Okay, because like I watch a lot of like movies and like films, whatever. I love going to see shit in like 35 millimeters. But still, some of the movies that I've watched the most or bring me the most comfort are like maybe not movies that like I don't. Right now, my favorite movies are Josie and the Pussycats.
Yes, excellent movie.
Southland Tales.
Never seen it.
It's on my Letterboxd.
Oh,
but,
okay.
And like those movies are actually Southland Tales. You could get a little intellectual about, but like Josie and the Pussycats, rock from 2001, rocks.
So good.
But
Such
like
a good movie.
also one of my favorite movies. I'm trying to think of like a Simon Lang movie that's like 3 hours long.
No,
I love that shit.
I don't think I could do that. Okay, well, at any rate, I do, maybe because of the films, I feel like you're more of an art person than I am.
Yeah, I wasn't always okay, I remember one time saying to my friend, I hate art, only because I had gone to see Inland Empire, the David Lynch movie, like right like the night it came out. So it was like a midnight movie. So it was like midnight to like 3 in the morning. It's a 3-hour fucking long movie. And it's like not even a movie. It's just like clips of Laura Dern screaming.
Oh.
And it was so cold in there, and I was so like, it was so long and so boring and so like I think it was probably meant to, like, I'm like, this movie is meant to be shown in pieces at like a gallery. Like, it was definitely like an art film, and I was so miserable that I was like, I fucking hate art.
Okay, well, this is actually really relatable to me. I definitely feel like when I view art, there's something that everybody else is understanding that I am missing. And it's really similar to how I interpret poetry. Like, I don't understand poetry either.
Really?
I feel like maybe I'm just too literal of a person. I
love poetry.
Okay.
I write poetry.
See, I can't. I just feel like it's something that I really struggle to understand. Like, if I look at a painting, I can go, all right, the colors are nice or whatever, but beyond that, it's like really difficult for me to enjoy.
Really?
Yeah, and very often I feel like I think about art from the position of a decorator because I like decorating things. So I'll be like, oh, how would this fit as like a piece of furniture in my house or in someone's house or in a space? Like, I think of it that way. But the only type of art, like, I actually can say 100% that I enjoy is Byzantine religious art. Which is why when I went to Europe for my birthday, I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Something I wouldn't expect from you.
I know, right? So it's like art from Europe from like the year 330 to the year 1450, and it can't be past that for specific reasons I'll explain in a moment.
Honestly, I think that's really sick and pretty metal.
It is. It's kind of metal. Yeah. So it's all Christian art. It's very religious art, which is weird because I'm an atheist. But yeah, this is the only type of art that has any kind of effect on me, maybe like emotionally or intellectually whatsoever. And the effect it has on me when I see it is that it delights me. Like, I get giddy with joy. I'm like, ah, yes. Like, I love it so purely. And if I'm being perfectly honest about, like, deconstructing why I enjoy it so much, I literally think it's just because they hadn't figured out proportions yet for how to, like, draw people. Like, they didn't quite know how to art yet. So all the people are just, like, really weirdly shaped. They have these long necks and these tiny heads, and I just think it's funny. Like, I look at it and I'm like, haha, yes, you know? And it's usually, like, Jesus, but, like, weird adult man baby Jesus with like a long neck and a small head, and it's just very quality entertainment to me. And they also use a ton of gold. Like, they literally will use gold leaf over the whole painting, so I get to look at it and be like, oh, funny headman is shiny. You know, I just love it. So this is the only type of art that really moves me and excites me, but I don't think I'm getting like an art experience out of it necessarily.
I think you are. Like,
okay,
I
good,
don't
thank
know.
you.
I have more of like a broad view, because some things that I think, I definitely think I'm more the person, like, you know, in American Beauty, where he has the film camera of the plastic bag.
Yes.
It's like floating in the wind. He's like, this is beauty. That's me.
You're like, yes.
I'm like, I see it, man. That plastic, me and Katy Perry, man, that plastic bag floating through the wind.
She did. She said that in the song, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I just slapped my knee so hard because I think it's so funny.
Trash art. I love it. Very Duchamp. Yeah. So, whatever. I was thinking about all this shit. I was thinking about art, you know?
Capital A art.
Capital A art, because I'm actually kind of intelligent, according to that man I went on a date with. Thank you. And I thought it would be fun to compare your and my experiences with art.
Okay.
In a little test. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so I prepared 3 art pieces for us to respond to.
Okay.
And we can do this a couple ways. I can send them to you via text message, and you can react, or you can just look at my computer. I have them pulled up.
Sure, I can just look at them.
Okay, all right, okay. So here we go. I prepared 3 art pieces. Kenna is going to look at them, and I'm just going to intro them, and then you're going to tell me your initial response fast,
Okay.
and I'm going to tell you my initial response when I first looked at it.
Okay.
Okay, so number 1 is The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch, and
Ooh.
here it is.
I always wanted these docs.
Oh, they have Doc Martens with these printed on them?
Yes, they're pretty expensive. But
I could see that. Okay, so here's the art piece. I made it big.
So sick.
Okay, so what do you have like a feeling? Is this evocative of an emotion to you?
It
gazing at
feels very fantastical. Like, it feels like it is a strange world. It reminds me of Fantastic Planet.
Does it make you happy? Do you have feelings about it?
It makes me feel actually like, ooh, like pretty delightful, but also a little bit scared, which makes it exciting.
Oh,
Because
okay.
there's just some weird shit going on.
Yeah, okay, so the next thing I was going to ask is, can you explain what you're looking at? Like, explain the painting to people who are listening to the podcast.
Okay, it is like, probably medieval era. So, the people are drawn in like that kind of proportional style. But it's like a green field with water flowing out of these like weird buildings that are all, they look kind of like futuristic-y style, which is weird considering it's probably from the Middle Ages. And there are all these people bathing in the water, and then above this little lake is a little smaller, it looks like a hot tub with people like bathing in it, and then around the hot tub there's a bunch of animals kind of going around in a circle.
Yes, with naked people riding on them.
Yes.
Okay, so I actually saw this painting in real life in Madrid this summer.
Oh, was it big?
It was pretty big. Yeah, it was pretty big. I had never heard of this before, and I just
Really?
saw it. And because it gave me more of an actual response than any other art usually does, unless it's super religious, weird Byzantine art, I saw it and I was like, funny. And that was me connecting to art. I was like, funny.
Okay,
Funny.
I know this because weirdly all the like metal dudes I know were like, Haranash Bosch, like it's so twisted and sick.
Oh, okay, so similar to funny.
Yeah. But yeah, oh man, I gotta find those docs for you.
That sounds cool. Okay, so I have number 2 actually, and it's interesting that you brought up Rothko earlier. This is the piece called Black and Deep Red by Mark Rothko. So how do you feel looking at this painting?
I feel like I'm looking into like death.
Oh, metal.
It seems really goth, and at first it's like, ooh, scary, but then you're like, is it scary? But it's like there's like a burnt copper background, and then 3 like boxes, 2 of which are black, and then the bottom one is red.
Yes, and it's got kind of blurry edges. It's kind of messy. Yes, totally. Okay, so I like Rothko paintings. When I'm at a museum, I'll be like, oh, these are nice. So when I looked at this, the first word that came to my head was, okay. And that was, to me, was a big stamp of approval given my relationship with other art forms. I saw it and I was like, okay. And that's it. That was my reaction to it. So, okay. So number 3, moving past me just accepting Rothko and that being good to me, is a piece called Branches with Almond Blossom by Vincent van Gogh. So kind of, this one's a little smaller on the screen, but what do you think about this? Do you have first impressions here?
It looks pretty. It kind of looks like wallpaper to me.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like Victorian wallpaper. Like,
yes. Do you have an emotional feeling looking at this piece at all?
this seems more decorative. I feel like sometimes when I see stuff in real life and you can see brush strokes and shit, I'm like, wow, someone made this and like spent all this time focusing on it. Or like, I don't know, like,
You like the human experience. You can kind of glean the human experience from
and
it.
like, I'm just like, I wonder what he was thinking. Like, I wonder if this is like a sad thing, or like if it's like he saw this like beautiful piece of flower shrubbery thing, like when he saw someone that he loved or something, and it reminded, like, I like a little bit of a story behind it, but at first glance it just looks really decorative to me. It doesn't look like art, but I'd have to see it as like a painting where it just looks more like a pattern, like that you would see on like a duvet cover
Or wallpaper. I can see that. Yeah, I had a similar experience. I'm going to describe it, actually. So this is like a teal background, and it is some branches that are a little gnarled, and then there's white blossoms on the branches kind of blowing, and it's a really close-up shot. It's like really zoomed in. So for me, similar to kind of when I first saw this, it was not interesting to me at all. In fact, my first word that came to mind was yuck. I didn't like it. The color palette's really nice. There's flowers. I like flowers, but the tree branches are just kind of ugly and knobby, and I was just like, no, don't like it. So, yeah, I thought it was appropriate that we ended the segment of 3 with Vincent van Gogh, because the whole reason I started even thinking about capital A art is because of everyone losing their shit right now over the whole Van Gogh sunflower painting tomato soup thing.
Oh, yes. I was actually just thinking about Vincent van Gogh because I was rewatching my favorite anime, Samurai Champloo, and they are in search of the man who smells of sunflowers.
Oh.
And they reference Vincent van Gogh in an episode because, you know, he did the sunflowers.
He did the sunflowers.
And yeah, and I was like feeling very wistful about it. I feel like also Vincent van Gogh weirdly also makes an appearance in fucking Doctor Who.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. So what, okay, do you want to like explain the Vincent van Gogh sunflower painting tomato soup thing?
Well, from what I know, some climate activists threw soup on the sunflower Vincent van Gogh painting.
Yes, exactly.
But the painting is okay because it's covered in glass.
Correct. So, yeah, basically 2 climate activists from the group Just Stop Oil went to the National Gallery in London and threw tomato soup on the Van Gogh sunflower painting, which was covered in glass. And then they super glued themselves to the wall beneath it while wearing t-shirts that say Just Stop Oil on them. And before gluing herself to the wall, one of the activists yelled out, "Are you more concerned about the protection of a painting or the protection of our planet and our people?" And of course, in doing this, the painting wasn't actually damaged, right? It was behind glass. It was back on display within 6 hours, but it did bring a lot of attention to the climate protest. So this person, Margaret Klein Salaman, who is the executive director of the American Climate Emergency Fund, said, in terms of press coverage, the Van Gogh protests may be the most successful action I've seen in the last 8 years in climate movement. It was a breakthrough. It succeeded in breaking through this really terrible media landscape where you have this mass delusion of normalcy. It's time to wake up. And I thought that was interesting because I've seen a lot of people on the internet be like, it didn't even accomplish anything. But I kind of agreed with this chick. I was like, damn, this is the most I've heard about climate activism on the news in a long time.
I saw someone either on TikTok or Twitter talk about, they're like, some dude literally set himself on fire in front of the Supreme Court in protest of climate change, and this got more coverage. The painting got more coverage.
It did.
And I'm like, damn, you're right.
People really do care more about objects and possessions than they do about human life. And I think that that's something that in capitalism has been displayed time and time again. Like, human life is not sacred under capitalism, but objects that can be monetized and commodified are. And that's why I think protests that targets objects of commodification and great value, great monetary value in particular, I think that that's why it gets the most attention, because you're hitting people where it hurts, and where it hurts is the pocketbook. And obviously the whole point of the protest was to kind of say, look, everything we care about is going to be destroyed when climate change kills the planet. You know, this painting, every painting, human life, all of it gone. So this group that Margaret Klein Salaman, who had that quote about it being like really successful in the media eye, the group that she's part of, the Climate Emergency Fund, they have supplied $4 million to dozens of different climate activist organizations, including Just Stop Oil, which is the ones who did the Van Gogh painting thing. This year alone. And there's been a lot more action as a result of this, and they say there's going to be like a lot more going forward. And this brought about all sorts of different perspectives on this, right? There's this tie to Eileen Getty, who's an oil heiress who helped co-found the Climate Emergency Fund and gave $1 million this year to the cause. And this has launched conspiracy theories alluding to this idea that she funded it to try to make climate change activists look like stupid idiots or something. There's also other people, though, who've contributed too. It's not just Eileen Getty. There's a Disney family heiress, and there's also Adam McKay, who was the director of that climate change movie Don't Look Up that was on Netflix. Remember that? He actually pledged $4 million. So she's just partial contributor. And I really don't buy the conspiracy theory end of it. I think probably climate change is just a thing that everyone should care about. And sometimes that even means rich kids who are potentially sentient enough beings to see their parents' role in contributing to it and have critiques of that. And Eileen Getty, in particular, she famously always distrusted her own family and the source of their wealth, like her entire life. She's had a long-standing history of forming charitable foundations to deal with what she considers pressing social issues. She also struggled with mental breakdowns and drug addiction herself throughout her entire life. She has AIDS, and when she was diagnosed, she got a giant biohazard tattoo that's like huge on her arm, branding her as a person with AIDS to help combat stigma. She just kind of seems like a lost but well-intentioned rich girl who doesn't understand that just like giving away her family's entire fortune would actually probably be more effective than contributing $1 million to this one thing. But you know, she's doing these weird measured gestures of philanthropy that come across as hypocritical and bizarre, I think, from a PR perspective. But I don't buy the conspiracy theory end of it. I think it's just rich people being out of touch.
Wait, is this the same Getty as like the Getty Museum?
It's the Getty Oil people, so it could be the museum people as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, you know, that was like an interesting thing people were talking about. Again, I don't think I don't think it's like, haha, we're tricking people into thinking that climate activists are stupid. I do just think rich people are out of touch. I think she's probably like, yeah, we should save the planet. And she's like, here's some money. And everyone's like, it's a conspiracy.
This is my thing where it's like, I really hate philanthropy in a certain way. Like, yes, it's good to give to people. Like, it's good to do like mutual aid, but like philanthropy is different. Because basically what people do when they do philanthropy, instead of being like, I'm going to pay my fair, like in the system, I'm going to pay my fair share of taxes to the government so everyone can be taken care of with roads, schools, whatever. You're like, no. I'm going to control what I do with my money in the way I want. So I'll give this money to hunger, to, or to do this thing, but I'm in charge. I get to say what I'm doing with it. And to me, it's very like,
it's like worthy poor. It's like, these are the people I think are the worthy poor.
It's very, why can't I think of the word when someone talks to you like a baby?
Condescending?
It seems very like...
Pandering?
It seems like a little bit condescending. Like,
super condescending.
I know what to do with this money to help the poor.
Right, exactly. And you're like, no, the only thing to do is dismantle capitalism.
Yeah.
So like, unless you're going to get on board with dismantling capitalism.
Well, it's just like, it's hiding the fact that capitalism has done so much wrong and it actually doesn't benefit everybody. Like, people think about like trickle down economics. Oh, well, if a person's rich, they can just give away some of their money to these things, or like they'll make more jobs, so it'll trickle down to the poor. And I'm like, no, it's just a way for them to get out of the social obligations that everyone else has to, which is fucking taxes.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like, granted, I don't want the system that we're in, but right now I fucking pay taxes. Like, yeah, and I have to contribute my fair share. Right. Why don't they have to as well?
Right. And then people point to the philanthropy, like, oh, like they do something. So anyway, yeah, the Van Gogh painting, the weird philanthropy tie-in with this out-of-touch rich lady. So all the takes on the Van Gogh painting I've seen a lot have been through that lens. But also, like, other people, too. The protests raised a lot of ire from people who were literally just worried that the Van Gogh painting was somehow damaged. Or, like, people were even like, the frame was damaged.
Who cares about the frame?
Well, the frame's, like, part of the original piece, but also it's, like... who actually fucking cares? And this was really hard for me to listen to because, apparently I have an outlook on art that's obviously not shared by people the world over, which is, I don't really care if a Van Gogh painting gets damaged. I don't really care about Van Gogh paintings. And I said this on TikTok, actually, and it was really shocking to people. People were really shocked by that perspective. And then I, in turn, was shocked that other people were shocked. It was one of those things where I'm like, well, you guys are really caring about this?
I mean, I think it's kind of sad about, like, but it's the same type of sad as, like, to me, because I like movies and stuff, when you hear about like an old film that can never be seen because it just like the film reel like got in a fire or got lost, or like especially fire, because like those old film reels are like highly flammable.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we have, though, that just like this general narrative of art being something of deep cultural significance. And I do agree with that on a micro level, but like on this massive widespread industry level, like how we interact with art in capitalism and the system we have today, I mean, there's no denying that what we even consider fine art or important art or culturally significant art today is largely a reflection of our culture's history of biases, which mirror systems of oppression. So, like, why is Van Gogh's post-impressionist art considered, for example, more significant today than, Henry Osawa Tanner, a black impressionist artist who's working at the same time as him, whose work is very stunning, very beautiful by the same metrics? And there's a reason, right? It's that Henry Osawa Tanner is a black impressionist painter and Vincent van Gogh was white. In the United States today, 85% of artists represented in the top 18 museums are white and 87% are men. So by comparison, as of 2020, only 58% of the USA is non-Hispanic white and just 49.5% of the USA is men. So, these numbers aren't adding up. The representation is like really skewed. And that's why roughly 30 years ago, the activist group Guerrilla Girls famously asked this question: do women have to be naked to get into the Met Museum? Do you remember this?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, they proclaimed that at the time, less than 5% of the artists in the modern art section at the Met Museum were women, but 85% of the nudes in the museum were depictions of women.
Whoa.
And since then, it looks like a little progress has been made, but it's still not exactly representative of society on the whole. And at the National Gallery, where the Van Gogh was souped, for example, 97% of the artists shown there are white and 90% are men.
Whoa.
So to me, Van Gogh's painting, you know, it was there to be souped, almost certainly, in part because he was a white European man. Not because his work is objectively more important to society or more culturally significant than someone like Henry Osawa Tanner's. We believe Van Gogh is special because people tell us Van Gogh is special. And it feels worth noting that those same people telling us Van Gogh is special tend to tell us that, in general, art made by white men is the most special.
Yeah, and like... Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's sad when anything that's like pretty like gets destroyed, but that's just kind of like life. And to me, it's like, yeah, objectively, life on Earth is worth more than a painting.
Right.
But it is like kind of, I mean, it's the question with like money and stuff, like, or certain things, like how come some things are so seen as so valuable while others are not.
Right. This object is seen as more important than human life.
Yeah, which is like, yeah, it really bums me out when people can't see the bigger picture.
Yeah. Our notions of art, to me, though, like, sometimes they register as, like, naively utopian and devoid of the cultural context in which contemporary art exists, right? It's smushed through the lens of capitalism and white supremacy and misogyny, and we want to believe these things just have, you know, intrinsic historical value that is so special and significant, but we deny, like, okay, for that one Van Gogh painting we saved, how many more beautiful works of art by people who weren't considered worthy in society, who weren't white European men, how many of those were lost before we even saw them?
Yeah, that to me is really sad. That's sadder than if the sunflowers got souped.
Right, and also it's like we've all seen the sunflowers. You know, it's not the same as seeing a painting in person, like you were saying, Kenna. Like, you can see the brushstrokes, you can see this, that's special. But also, that's not the way most working class people get to engage with art. They don't have the plane ticket to fly to Europe where all the fancy art is and look at it in the museum. And it's especially not where people who are most likely to be affected by climate change live. Most of the people who are going to be heavily affected by climate change live in countries in Africa or South America, and that is not somewhere next door to fancy European museum with fancy European man's white guy art in it. It's just not. And I say that as a person who I actually kind of like the sunflower paintings as much as I can like paintings. I saw it and I was like, this is nice. That's okay. It's like the Rothko. I was like, okay, all right, yeah.
But the thing is, it's like I've gotten just as moved by really stupid things.
Face Off. More moving to me. No, just kidding. But yeah, I was thinking about all this. I was thinking about who decides what art is important and who chooses which art we look at in museums and what gives art value in the first place. And I was thinking about oil heiresses and long-necked religious men with tiny heads. And it led me to today's topic, which we're just now getting to.
Oh.
Which is the art industry.
Oh.
Yeah, so okay. It's the industry side of things.
Ah, yes. I feel like I have some friends who are artists and you hear like the industry side. It seems like you forget like it is a business.
It is a business, and it is big business.
Yeah, I mean, if Damien Hirst can sell whatever the fuck, I guess there's like a Damien Hirst penthouse suite at this place in like Las Vegas that's like $1 million a night.
Oh
or something.
No! Oh my god!
I saw this TikTok where like you go through it, or like, and it was the fucking ugliest shit.
That's like my nightmare. That is like my nightmare.
It was so ugly. It was all like pills that had been like put in like what's that stuff, like resin. It just like, I mean, I guess everyone has their own thing with like,
it was like, it sounds like it's like being in a 3-dimensional NFT.
Okay, I think it may have looked worse than Gigi Hadid's apartment.
I also same energy. I was picking up on the dyed pasta energy of Gigi Hadid's apartment.
Sorry, but if you're listening to this, like, just take a look at Gigi Hadid's New York apartment.
Do yourself a favor and Google Gigi
and
Hadid's
look at
apartment.
her pasta art.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah, so obviously as long as people have existed, we've made art, right? We have evidence of cave paintings that are made between 43,000 to 65,000 years ago, which is just wild to me. You know, art's a way we express ourselves. It's a way we communicate with other people. It's a way we decorate our spaces and generally just, like, engage with life. Like, sometimes it's just fun to make art. But the art industry, obviously, is something very different, right? Because that refers specifically to the commercial buying and selling of art, usually for profit. Mm-hmm. So that really is big business. And a lot of people think that this kind of commercial art industry, as we think of it today in the Western world, maybe kind of got its footing during the Italian Renaissance. There's this one guy in particular who pops up a lot in writings from the time as, like, an art dealer. And he's kind of the first significant art dealer we see talked about in the Western world. Obviously, like in Roman times, people were like still dealing art, but it's a little different. So this guy in the 1500s, his name was Giovanni Battista della Paia. And he was an Italian politician. And his dad was like this rich apothecary named Marco de Mariotti. You know, he just grew up basically this rich kid interested in the arts. So he ended up getting super involved in contemporary, at the time, right, like Italian art. He ended up becoming also a politician later in life, but he started to procure Italian artworks before that. And he was mainly selling them, like dealing them to the King of France, Francesco I. So basically, yeah, he was a really early art dealer. He was in communication with a lot of leading artists at the time, like Michelangelo. You know, he was in the art world. And his whole thing is he'd go around to these artists and he'd try to buy pieces off them pretty cheap. And then he'd go to the King of France and he'd sell them for this high markup. And he'd either sell them or he'd be like, now give me political favors. So either for money or political favor, whatever. And in 1530, he bought this marble sculpture called Mercury made by Baccio Bandinelli. And you can now find that in the Louvre. Like, he was buying, like, really significant works of art by today's standards. He also managed to get in possession of this painting, San Sebastiano, by Bartolomeo, I believe.
My Italian, not good.
Yeah, none of my pronunciation's good, but that's okay. We'll roll with it. But this thing was previously in a church. But then, this is really funny to me, the friars were like, oh, it's too sexy, it's sinful.
The friars were like, it's too sexy.
Yeah, they really got horny looking at this painting. And the friars were like, get it out of here, it's sin, I'm sinning. And then, you know, Giovanni Battista della Paia was like, what's that you say? I'll take your horny painting.
You know what I would do if I were, like, an artist during this time? Like, I'd get in with the, like, the monasteries and the... I almost said covens, what is it called when the nuns...
I was going to say nunnery, but that's not a thing either.
Anyway, convent.
Convent, yes.
But I would just make the religious stuff a little too sexy.
Like a really sexy Jesus.
Like a really ripped... No.
Yeah. Like a romance novel Jesus.
Yeah, like Fabio Jesus.
And
then
yes.
I'd sell it to them, and they'd be like, oh, this is a little too sexy for us. We'd be like, don't worry, I'll take it off my hands. You just have to charge me a fee to take it.
Yes.
To take it off your hands and be like, yeah, just get it out of here. And then I'd sell it again.
So I think you need a second person to run the scam.
Yeah, I would use this dude.
Oh, okay, got it. You go in with De La Paia.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think it's a grift. If I were in medieval, or is this Renaissance?
Italian Renaissance.
If I was in the Italian Renaissance, I would be so good.
You'd be grifting those nuns left and right. You'd be taking that sweet, sweet Jesus money. Okay, got it. I like that. Now we know. Okay, so but like for reference, you know, during the Renaissance, not a lot of artists were making a living off their art, and even the really successful ones, it wasn't like a stable job. It was kind of like freelancing as we think of it today. So most of these works would be commissioned by the ruling class or the church or just like random rich people. A great example that we all had to learn about, I think, in school was the De Medici family. You know, famously, they were patrons of the art. They were a ruling class. They were like princes or something like that. You know, these were people who had money and they would commission an artist locally to like create art on their behalf. But because these patrons were funding the projects, very often the artists would have little say over the final outcome of the piece or what they were even working on. So this one painter, Pietro Perugino, received a commission in the 1500s that outlined like the entire painting. So this person writes, she's like, yes, my husband and I are so excited that you're going to paint this for us. This is exactly what you were going to paint. And it was like multiple paragraphs, but one of them was like, our poetic invitation, which we greatly want to see painted by you, is a battle of chastity and lasciviousness. That is to say, Pius and Diana fighting vigorously against Venus and Cupid, and Pius should seem almost to have vanquished Cupid, having broken his golden arrow and cast his silver bow underfoot. With one hand she's holding him by the bandage, which his blind boy has before his eyes, and with the other she is lifting her lance and about to kill him. This went on for paragraphs. Like, Literally, you look at this and you're like, I'm doing paint by numbers for this woman, is what's happening.
Wow. That would be so difficult.
Right? So this is how it would go, though. These commissions, they'd be very detailed. They would say explicitly what they wanted. And oftentimes the patron would also want to see themselves painted into the artwork somewhere.
I like, honestly, I feel like I would too.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of fuck with that. That's kind of fun. That's like, Where's Waldo vibes.
I'd be like, I would definitely be like, I would want to be painted someplace funny, though. Like in a cabbage patch, and my head is like in the cabbage.
Okay, I love that you said that, because my first thought when you said this was that I would want my face to be painted into the sun. So we're very similar.
You're Teletubbies, I'm Cabbage Patch.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but I thought this was really interesting, because a lot of times when we talk about art, we talk a lot about like the symbolism, you know, and the iconography represented. And when you look back, you're like, these early artists had no say over the symbolism and iconography in these paintings. They were told explicitly what to do. So really, when you look at paintings like this that were commissioned, all you can assess them for is like their technical proficiency, maybe their use of color, whatever, you know. It was really, really difficult to do, but it was kind of the equivalent of like olden times AI art generators. Obviously, it took a lot more work. It was a lot more effort on their part. It was a lot harder. It was longer for them to do. But, you know, they didn't have much control over what they were popping out. And artists would make money from this artwork whenever they landed a commission, obviously. And the commissions were handled via these super detailed contracts that included, you know, the timeline, the scale of the project, the payment terms, whatever. And sometimes when they didn't have commissions, they would also try to sell like ready-made smaller artworks, but it wasn't super, you know, like in demand. But basically, there were these huge amounts of time because of this, where even artists we consider super famous, like masters of their craft today, they went for a long time with no commissions, and they would sometimes face like financial difficulty. Like at one point, even Michelangelo, who's widely considered to be one of like the wealthiest artists working in his time, like in his life, besides someone like Damien Hirst probably. Like when we think of Michelangelo, though, he was like really successful for an artist at his time. There was this one point where he had to tell his father came to him and was like, I need money. And Michelangelo wrote to him and said, I don't have any money. What I'm sending you now, I tore out of my heart, and it doesn't seem right to go begging. You know, this was the most successful artist around, and he was not flush 100% of the time. So what we really see when we look at someone like Giovanni Battista della Palla, who was born into this really wealthy family and goes around to these artists, like taking their art and reselling it to the freaking king of France, is we just see a rich guy making money and earning political favor off of the work of artists who are oftentimes broke and struggling just to get by. And historians, because of this, have like not been kind to the legacy of Della Palla in this regard. He's sometimes referred to as a two-bit merchant by historians, and eventually he was imprisoned as a traitor, and he was either beheaded or he committed suicide in prison, depending on your source. But yeah, basically a lot of people at the time just kind of saw him as a grifter for dealing art at all. Super interesting. So by the 1700s, art dealings appeared to be less specific. Like you didn't have just like the art guy going around town. They were more mixed in with like other types of luxury merchant sales. So around this time, there was this French merchant named Lazare de Vaux who sold artwork, but also like furniture, jewelry, ceramics. And de Vaux kept these really detailed ledgers of all of his dealings. And these ledgers have survived for hundreds of years, so historians really love them because it gives contemporary art historians a lot of insight into the movement of art around Europe from the 1700s to 1800. Around this time, we had art auctionings that started happening in conjunction with other types of auctions. And some notable stuff starts popping up. Like, for example, the French and the British get really obsessed with Dutch art during the 1700s. They're all about it. We see works by Gerrit Dou and Anthony van Dyck from the 1600s, now in the 1700s, 100 years later, reaching like world record levels at art auctions. Like, they're like breaking world records for the most money people are spending at art auctions, according to records we have at the time. And the people buying these pieces at auctions, well, just like back in the days of the Italian Renaissance, when Giovanni Battista della Palla was dealing art with politicians for money and power, into the 1700s, art dealing and collection was, still a way of like acquiring or currying domestic and international political power and favor. So in 1771, our favorite complicated bitch, basically, Catherine the Great of Russia. I don't know why Catherine the Great comes up in like every fucking episode we do. But she actually set the world record at auction for buying a Dou painting. And her whole thing is she's like, I'm going to collect art so that Europe will respect Russia. Like, that was it. She's like, I want to show them I'm cultured. I want to show them Russians are cultured. We're on the main stage. Like, we are sophisticated. And I'm going to go drop a bunch of money on all this art, including this Dao painting that all, you know, the English and the French are all excited about, to show, like, oh, yes, I am on the same level as you. So it really was used as a way for rich people to kind of curry each other's favor and respect. Also, fun fact, I'm pretty sure that is the Dao painting that she bought that ended up like sinking to the bottom of the ocean right after she bought it for some astronomical figure, and it's just like lost forever. So didn't work so great. And also, though, in the 1700s, in 1766, James Christie ended up founding Christie's. You've probably heard of Christie's. I had heard of it before, but I wasn't quite sure what it is. It's a world famous British auction firm, which is known now especially for dealing art. And Christie, in particular, had Catherine the Great as a client. He was the dealer for that extremely expensive Dao painting that she bought.
Do we even know what it looks like? I mean, how could we?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's... I don't know. There's probably descriptions of it that have existed.
Huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually. I actually had never even heard of this guy, Garrett Dao. And I looked him up, and it looked like he was pretty popular at the time he was making art. And then when he died, he kind of fell into obscurity. And it wasn't until I think the late 1800s or like maybe like early 1900s that people started paying attention to him again. Very, very interesting. So he had this brief surge of popularity. He died. He had another like little pop-up of popularity in the 17 and 1800s, and then went back again. And then he was pretty much like lost to obscurity. Oh, I think it was until the 1970s. So very interesting. He was somebody I had never even heard of. And then there was like also around this time this French philosopher Denis Diderot, and he had like really strong opinions about this art world that was starting to pop up like kind of institutionally around them. And he had strong opinions in particular about the role of the art dealer. So in 1767, he wrote and he said, "It is these people, the art dealers, okay, who interpose themselves between the man of wealth and the indigent artist, who make the man of talent pay for protection they provide him, who open and close doors for him, who snatch the best of his product from him." So we basically painted dealers out like sketchy middlemen, profiting off of the work of others, like really, really similar to Giovanni Battista della Palla, how people viewed him at the time. So even though this is happening amongst the wealthy, you can see a lot of people are still like, this seems unethical in a way that people are having a hard time like parsing. They're like, you're just profiting off of the labor of others, right? Kind of like an anti-capitalist kind of.
Yeah,
rhetoric.
I was like, interesting.
Yeah, sounds familiar. By the time we get like up to the 1800s, we still see art sales being closely associated with home decor for the wealthy. Like, so kind of in the 1700s where people would like auction art, but they would also auction like furniture and things like that. You might just go buy art at the same places you bought high-end furniture or mirrors or frames or whatever. So in 1810, for example, a craftsman in Boston named John Doggett opened up a shop to sell both pictures and picture frames, and both of them were like billed as equally important. Like, we got paintings and we got frames. And later, he ended up founding this art gallery called Williams and Everett, which ended up being huge in the United States. And they would deal what they advertised to be fine foreign and American paintings. I actually have a little ad for them I found online. They were at 503 Washington Street in Boston, and it's like a very detailed advertisement that they took out. And they also advertise beneath fine foreign and American paintings, artistic frames, and specialty. Very interesting. So we also see during this time, there's the growth of the auction market happening in Europe, as well as the expansion and growth of museums. And this all worked together to kind of lead to this elevated perception of the value of art, as well as interest in like private art collection as a status symbol and an example of your taste. You're like, I have such good taste. Look at all of my sick ass art collection. Kind of what people do today with like shoe collections, I think, you know? So in 1831, this French art dealer, Paul Durand Ruel, was born, and he came from a family of picture dealers. That's what they called it, of like art dealers. He is a little bit unique because he becomes one of the first modern art dealers to provide monthly stipends and solo exhibitions to living artists that he worked with and represented. This is kind of new. So instead of just being like, look, I found this painting, this rich person sold me this painting, now I'm going to sell it to you. This guy actually went out and he found working artists kind of like old school style, like back in the day, Medici kind of vibe, you know, but into modernity, and was like, I see you making art. All right, I'm going to give you money just to make art, and then I'm going to take that art and I'm going to sell it afterwards because I believe in you. And part of the sale process is I'm going to do these solo exhibitions. So we really capitalismed it, the art dealing world, like super, super hard. And one of the things that he did is he got really into Impressionism. So he was like, I'm going to bring Impressionism to the people. We're going to sell them Impressionism. And do you know what Impressionism is?
Like Monet or Vincent van Gogh, where it's like when you... I would like to explain, like, when you get really close, you can't see anything. It just looks like a bunch of, like, colors, but when you walk away, you can see it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this art style that developed in France in the 1800s. So at the time that he was getting into the Impressionists, it was really current. This guy was like catching them as they were making art. And it ended up being this like nature-inspired, on-the-spot painting style. You would just go out to the world with your canvas and you would just paint out in the world, not in your studio. You'd be surrounded by the scenery that you were ostensibly painting, and it had quick, loose brush strokes, bright, airy quality in the color palette. And yes, like you said, the further away from the paintings you stood, the more clear they looked. And this stuff was really popularized later by, yes, Monet and Renoir and Manet and Degas. So these are kind of the people doing it. Now, for decades, these Impressionist guys flew under the radar. They were ignored, or when people did pay attention, they were kind of made fun of because it didn't look like other painting going on at the time. But Durand-Ruel pumped money into these guys, and he created galleries like just for this shit in Paris, London, and New York to push it onto the public. He made every penny of his investment back and then some. This ended up paying off in a major way for this. So we see that this guy's really viewing art as a product. It's a commodity. And the artists he represents are almost like employees that he can then extract surplus value from, right? He's like, yeah, you work for me now. I give you this stipend. You make this shit and I'm going to fucking sell it to the masses. So it's really interesting because it's, on one hand, you can look at him and be like, oh, he's a patron of the arts. He believed in that. But really, when you looked at it from a more logistical, practical thing, you're like, no, these are his laborers and he's extracting money from them, you know, off the backs of their work. So it was really interesting dynamic. And this actually ties in back to Van Gogh and the Sunflowers. So Van Gogh is considered a neo-impressionist or a post-impressionist painter. And he hit the scene slightly after, you know, Manet and Degas and whatnot. And he famously died very poor, right? Destitute. He knew Monet, he knew all of those guys, but in his lifetime, he only managed to sell one single painting. He died malnourished, broke, overworked, emotionally and psychologically suffering. However, he did leave behind a legacy of 800 oil paintings and 700 drawings that after he died, art dealers flocked to turn a profit. And they were motivated in part by the sensational nature of both his mental illness in his lifetime and his ultimate suicide.
Whoa.
So they really saw this and they were like vultures. They were like, hey, we can sell this shit. People are starting to get into Impressionism. This looks like Impressionism, right? And this guy only sold one painting in his whole lifetime. He's got this whole untouched, like, cachet of
They don't
art.
have to pay him.
And they don't have to pay him because he's dead.
Whoa.
Yes. So in the 1800s, we see this pattern of art dealing really taking hold. Art dealers are siphoning the work of artists. They're taking a huge cut, whether the artist is alive to participate in it or not. And Impressionist painter Pissarro wrote about this guy, Durand-Ruel in particular, the Impressionist guy, and he wrote about him in a letter to his son, and he said, the lower the price, the better for him. He can leave our canvases to his children. It is disgusting to be part of such a degenerate business.
Whoa.
Yeah, so people were really hating the art dealers. And by 1869, Joseph Duveen was born in England, and he is also going to be an art dealer, and he's born pretty well off. Like all these art dealers, have you noticed, they're all born really rich. So this guy's family, Duveens, they've got a bunch of businesses. And he's like, I'm going to start my own businesses as an art dealer now. So he created galleries when he got older in London, New York, and Paris. And this guy, Duveen, he's a sales guy. That's his whole thing. He's a salesman. He's charming, he's glib, he's got the gift of gab, and he knows how to drum up interest. He used these like psychological sales techniques. He'd be like, oh, you like this piece? Dang, that's a bummer because there's no way I could ever sell this piece. I had to work so hard to get this piece from this European duke or count. He couldn't bear to part with it, you know, so I had to wrestle it from him. And now that I've got it, I'm kind of attached. I don't think you could have this piece. Or he'd be like, oh, this piece, my wife, man, she's in love with it. I can't do that to her unless the price was right.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
It's so funny to me how, like, because I've been in sales, I've worked retail, and there are some people who make sales like that, but weirdly, I make sales with the opposite tact. I'm like, okay, do you like it? Okay, if not, either way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will say, sometimes not being pushy, the way to go.
Yeah, well, this guy was the opposite of pushy. He was like, leave.
Well, no, it's like, oh, yeah, that one where it's just like, oh, I couldn't possibly.
Yeah. But this would, in fact, make other rich people just want the piece even more. Like, he was a rich guy. He knew how rich guys operated. He's like, oh, someone's telling me I can't have it?
I want it.
Fuck you, I'm getting it. I'm rich. I get whatever I want. And this guy was really good at this. And eventually, after this prolonged song and dance, the piece would sell at this premium price to, like, really rich people. We're talking, like, William Randolph Hearst, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller.
Whoa.
These were his clients. In fact, he specifically worked with the nouveau riche American millionaires and convinced them to buy these paintings that were like symbolic of British privilege because it was evocative of this like legacy of wealth in their minds. Like, you're not the new money. Like, you can have this art that communicates to people that you've always had money. That's how cultured you are.
Wow, people can be so smartly evil.
Yeah, right? And other people can be very deeply insecure. And he even said this. He was like, look, rich people like art because it's a symbol of immortality. It's passed down through the years. And he knew if you're rich, you can buy anything you want except for immortality. So selling them art was a way to sell them immortality. This thing's been here before you were here. It's going to go on after you're here. And you will be important because of your proximity to it.
Okay, this reminds me of Elon Musk. You know how, like, he wants to be, like, the singularity, like, consciousness after you die. And he wants to have 1 billion children.
Yes, to live forever. Yes, that's really interesting.
Yeah, also, you know, Walt Disney cryogenically frozen, supposedly.
I mean, I could fuck with being cryogenically frozen.
I could too. Yeah. You know what's funny? I was talking about this to some people, and they were like, I would never. Because what if shit goes bad? I'm like, but what? And like, what if you wake up and it's terrible? I'm like, but what if you wake up and it's cool?
I think we were talking about this at work, and I think that Fernanda and Kelsey's position was that if you were cryogenically frozen, they would unfreeze you to make you a slave to ultra-capitalism in the future to do the labor.
But I was just like, I don't know. What if it's really cool?
Yeah, it could be really cool. Whatever the case, you know, like this Duveen guy was selling rich people the idea of immortality, and he also specialized in selling art that was really old, right? Which meant he specialized in selling dead artists' art. So again, nobody has to take a cut of this. He doesn't have to mess with it. It's all surplus value, right? So these rich people, what we see, are still profiting off of broken, struggling artists' work long after they die. They're just making money off this work into perpetuity. And while Duveen was doing this, just getting extremely rich off the work of artists who had been dead sometimes for centuries, these other two guys come up on the scene. This is Ambrose Vallard and Daniel Henry Kahnweiler, who were both working as art dealers at the same time, too. However, they were working instead with contemporary living artists like Paul Cézanne and Pablo Picasso. So Vallard had this technique where he would just go into an artist studio and buy up a huge lot of the artist's work. He'd just take it all. He'd be like, yep, thank you, pleasure doing business. And then he would resell it at these massive profits. So basically he got the bulk discount with the artist, and then he would piecemeal every single piece by selling it at individual prices. And it worked. It made him super fucking wealthy, but everyone hated him. Everyone was like, this is exploitation, fuck you. But a lot of artists would be like, well, I can't turn down the bulk sale, you know? So they would do it even though they hated this guy because they were struggling to get by. Meanwhile, Kahnweiler really looked up to Vallard. He was like, you've got a good thing going on. But he had something that set him apart. This is like pretty commonly accepted that this guy Kahnweiler, everyone was like, he had the eye. He just had a good eye. He was able to look at a painting and basically know, like, yeah, there's going to be a big market for this. People are going to want to buy this. And I think this is really interesting because right away here, when we talk about the value and significance of a work of art during this time in the 1800s, we are talking about it through the art dealer's lens. How much profit this piece can possibly give the art dealer. And it really strikes me that these artworks are considered more of a product to be produced and consumed and sold, and profit off of than like an artistic work of self-expression or social commentary or something that just has cultural significance. The potential for profit is the driving force behind the art dealer's consumption, which pieces they choose to buy or ignore, and it's the art dealer's purchase and sale of these artworks that makes them culturally significant in our histories, because that's how they survive and move forward.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of? Have you seen the new Wes Anderson movie?
Which one?
The one that's the French Dispatch.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, the first scene where it's about this guy in French prison, like, making art?
Yes.
This reminds me so much of that, where he's just like, I have the eye for it, I know it will sell. Like, this really reminds me of that.
Yes. Yeah. It's very, very interesting. And I also think this is just, like, relevant because how we view, like, works of art, you know, that we're told, like, this is important and this is worth protecting and this represents so much that's important about our histories or cultures. It's like, no, it represented these rich capitalists being like, yeah, that looks palatable. I could sell that to a fuck ton of people. You know, it's more Thomas Kincaid, the guy who made all the factory-produced landscapes, like, in the 90s. It's more that than it is these really unique cultural experiences for a lot of the paintings that have survived today. So by the 1900s, this art world as commerce capitalism thing is really getting into the swing of things. We got galleries popping up all over New York and Paris. And we got this one man, Michael Knoedler, who's a French businessman who moved to New York, and he opens up his own gallery called Knoedler and Company, or Knoedler and Company, something like that. And this is in 1846. And he made waves because he was like, you know what? I'm not going to charge an entry fee to my gallery, which most people at the time would charge you to even enter. And he'd be like, no, we're doing it for the people. Just come on in. He wanted to make a visitor-friendly gallery experience. And he would mix contemporary European and American works of art together. He also would do solo exhibitions, and this would make artists more eager to work with him. Because they knew if they could get into a solo exhibition, they had a greater chance of their art being sold. And it also made the press more likely to cover the events because it gave them a narrative. Rather than being like, here's some fucking art, the press could be like, oh, here's this artist. Tell me about his life. Tell me about who he is. And they could kind of build this, like, idea of the artist up as a selling point for the actual art and report on it really easily. And Knoedler was really successful in the art world at the turn of the century. And his gallery actually stays open long after he dies, until 2011, when it finally closed after being sued multiple times for fraud after selling forged Rothko, Pollock, and Motherwell paintings. But it lasted forever. It lasted over 100 years. So Knoedler, though, back in the early 1900s, he only really had one major competitor, which was Wildenstein and Company. And Wildenstein was founded in Paris, but they opened their New York branch later in 1903. So they were super secretive about how they worked, and they have come under fire for some really fucked up shit in their time that they've been around. I think they're still around today. They have sold artwork that was illegally seized from Jewish art dealers by Nazis during World War II. And, you know, this is a major thing that happened during World War II. The Nazis looted Jewish families' homes. They looted their businesses. They stole everything of value, and especially art. Hundreds of thousands of pieces of art valuing billions of dollars were stolen from people during this time. And there's now a lost art foundation in Germany that's dedicated to trying to reunite families with the art that was taken from them by the Nazis from 1933 to 1945. And so far, nearly 700,000 pieces of art have been returned to their rightful owners.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's also a story arc about this on the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Do you remember?
No.
Okay, so we were talking about the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
I know, we weirdly talk about this show a lot.
I know, and somebody on our Patreon was like, you guys should do like a deep dive deconstruction of the Kimmy Schmidt show.
I don't really want to.
Well, and I think, though, the reason why it's interesting is in some ways the show is good, and in other ways...
deeply problematic.
So fucking problematic. There's so much weird racism. It's almost like they're doing that edgelord thing where they're like, haha, we're so not racist that we're racisming.
Yeah.
And you're like, this isn't edgy. This is just fucking weird.
Like, they didn't need to put in that as, like, certain things as, like... a storyline. They just didn't need to happen.
They didn't need to happen. So one of the story arcs they do is that this rich woman, Jacqueline, divorces her husband, and she's like, I'm going to be poor forever. And she gets $12 million. And she's like, it's not enough to live on. She goes to like an art auction, and she bids $11.5 million in a Mondrian painting. And everyone's like, why did you do that? And she's like, well, because now everybody thinks I'm rich. And if they think I'm rich, I'm more likely to get opportunities and be accepted in the social circle and be able to marry another rich man. If they think I'm destitute, I'll look desperate and I'll never have anything. So she has this empty apartment, and all she has in it is this $11.5 million Mondrian painting. And the story arc that develops is that the painting was actually stolen from a Jewish family by Nazis, and she has to give the painting up. And they do not handle it very delicately. They handle it in a way that's got some really overt anti-Semitism to me. It kind of just positions the Jewish family to be like villains, and Jacqueline, this rich white lady, is like, she's the victim of them in this weird fucked up way that doesn't fucking make sense at all. Yeah, the show is problematic. but it is reflective of an actual thing that happens because, this Lost Art Foundation is really dedicated to trying to get families back their art and their heirlooms and their legacies that were taken from them by Nazis. So this is a major thing happening in the 1900s. The first half of the 1900s, everybody's art's getting stolen. Really, really, really gnarly. And this company, Wildenstein and Company, they were doing the bad things. They were taking Nazi art and they were selling it and just being like, yeah, no, we know it's Nazi art, Nazi stolen art. It's not Nazi art, obviously, but that the Nazis stole this art and it doesn't belong to us and it's not right to sell it. So also happening in the first half of the 1900s in the art world is this opening of the 291 Gallery by Alfred Stieglitz in 1905. So this was this really modern-looking chic gallery, and Stieglitz was just some rich guy, and he was kind of notorious for not caring about sales at all. Like, he once asked a collector why he thought he even deserved to own a piece of art that he was selling in the gallery. The guy was like, I want to buy this. And he's like, why do you think you deserve it? Like, I don't think you deserve it.
Jeez.
Yeah. Eventually, shocking, Alfred Stieglitz ran out of money, and 291 closed in 1917. But then in 1929, he got enough money to open a second gallery, and that he kept afloat until he died in 1946. Also, in the first half of the 1900s, we've got the Julian Levy Gallery opening in 1931, and that featured prominent surrealist art. And truly, at this time, art is just business, and better business people ended up being more successful in the world of art. And one of these people is Peggy Guggenheim.
Oh, like the museum.
Yes, exactly. So Guggenheim enters the scene around this time. She had one gallery that she opened in London that failed. And then in 1942, she opened her second gallery in New York. And also tying in with World War II, we see that a lot of people fled Europe and came to the United States in the 1940s. Guggenheim opens up this gallery, and it's called Art of This Century. Terrible name. I'm just gonna lay it on the table. Really clunky.
I mean, it just sounds like, when they have the 1940 newsreels and they're like, Art of this century.
Yeah, exactly. But it did feature the first solo exhibitions of Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko, amongst others.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the 1950s, the world of art's picking up a lot of steam. It's really hitting, And this is where we see the CIA start to get involved. Because they can't keep their little muddy hands off anything. The CIA, they love to get involved. So, we got pioneering abstract modern artists, right? Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning, and Robert Motherwell. They are getting pretty popular. And the CIA is like, how do we exploit this in the name of capitalism? Right? Because you remember, the whole CIA thing is that they're like, we got to destroy communism and we got to make everyone think capitalism is awesome. That's their whole secret mission. That's it. So they're like, we're going to foster and promote American abstract expressionism as this great triumph of capitalism's free market.
Okay.
Okay, this is their plan. And this is a hard sell, okay? Because most Americans hated modern art. They hated it. Perhaps most ironically, many of the modern artists at the time themselves were communists. So all these guys who are making this art, they're not like, I love capitalism and the free market. They're like communists or communist sympathizers at the very least. And we have heard from artists time and time again, they're displaying an awareness of their exploitation, of the exploitation of their labor by gallery owners, by art dealers. They're aware. So it makes sense that communism is an ideology that's like, hey, the owners of these companies are exploiting you. Like, everybody should be adequately compensated for their labor. We could see why that would be appealing, right, to these artists happening in the United States. But the CIA is like, no. This has to be an opportunity to prove that capitalism in the U.S. is amazing. It's fostering intellectual freedom and new cultural movements. So they were like, we can use this to try to position communism as being rigid and authoritarian in nature, which was, of course, in line with our huge propaganda push at the time that they were trying to convince people. And these artists, though, meanwhile, had no idea that they were on the CIA's pro-capitalist, anti-communist dole. They didn't even know it was happening.
Whoa.
Yeah. So the CIA called this the long leash policy. Because these guys, they're bumbling idiots half the time, but half the time they kind of know what's going on. And they're smart enough to know that, fucking Rothko and Pollock aren't going to be like, yeah, I'd love to work with the CIA. Haha. They're like, no, they're going to hate this, so they cannot know they're working for us. All right? They got to undercover work for us. So by the 1950s, The CIA is really upset with how appealing communism is to artists and intellectuals in the West, so they set up this division called the Propaganda Assets Inventory, which at its peak could influence more than 800 newspapers, magazines, and public information organizations. And we did talk about this more thoroughly on our episode on the CIA, which is episode 28. But a lot of these policies operated under the moniker Operation Mockingbird, and it was just a massive propaganda and misinformation campaign that lasted for decades. So in 1950, the International Organization Division was set up under Tom Braden in the CIA. And within this, which was a part of the Propaganda Assets Inventory, they promoted jazz artists, opera recitals, the Boston Symphony, and even specific narratives they wanted represented in the film industry and in like book publishing houses. They also even put agents out as travel writers for major travel writing publications. Through this division, too, yes, they sponsored abstract expressionist art. This is what they were doing. They're like, you're traveling, you're a travel writer, you're making a movie, ooh, you're in the opera, love it, and you're setting up gallery shows for these abstract expressionist artists.
Okay, maybe this is a stretch, but in my mind, full circle, I'm like, the way the CIA was made up and like working and had like delegated all these tasks to people almost seems like a planned, like...
It's a planned system, but there's a strong hierarchy.
That is true.
There's a strong top-down hierarchy.
I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, you know, they could get into a planned economy. It's not a stretch. Just plan the economy. You're so close. You're so close. But yeah. So the reason why they were all about this shit is because in 1947, the Soviet Union was like, oh, the United States? That place is a cultural desert, right? And the U.S. government was embarrassed, right? Because they were like, we're not a cultural desert. We're a sophisticated, culturally rich democracy. We're Paris. We're London. But it was really hard to maintain that image because you got American politicians who are not on board with this. You got people like Joseph McCarthy, who's like, I'm not Paris or London. Sounds like socialist crap to me, right?
Well, yeah, and also, like, Russia has, like the art during that time is, like, so cool, and, like, also, like, they had, like, a long history of, like, Russian literature and, like, stuff, you know, like...
And the United States is still pretty new at this time, relatively speaking.
Yeah, like, they're like, we got these, like, speckled painter things.
Yeah.
That's what we got.
That's what we got. You know, so we got Joseph McCarthy, very publicly just a hysterical, bumbling buffoon of a man, right? Just like, the communists are going to take over. You're blacklisted. You're blacklisted. Ah! Then we got this other congressman who was complaining about the art, being like, well, I'm just a dumb American who pays taxes for this kind of trash. And the CIA is like, you guys are so fucking embarrassing. Oh my God, we are getting roasted out here. We are trying to present ourselves as this like cultural elite. We're trying to present ourselves as sophisticated and upper crust. And you guys are basically just hillbillies, right? Which, you know, nothing wrong with being a hillbilly, but this is just how the CIA viewed these specific American conservatives. So it was this whole mess. So the CIA is like, we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it. In the eyes of the world, we are going to appear very cultured. We're going to figure it out. And the way that they thought to do this, to try to position the United States as a culturally rich land of freedom, expression, and high society, was, to support these endeavors that they thought were very unique from an artistic standpoint. And there's this one former case-like officer from the CIA who worked on specifically this division named Donald Jameson, who after all these documents were declassified at Operation Mockingbird and this all kind of came public, he talked about it a little bit. And he was like, yeah, regarding abstract expressionism, I mean, I would love to be able to say that the CIA invented it just to see what happens in New York and downtown Soho tomorrow. But I think that what we really did was recognize the difference. It was recognized that abstract expressionism was the kind of art that made socialist realism look even more stylized and more rigid and confined than it actually was. And that relationship was exploited in some of the exhibitions.
Wow.
So socialist realism was the school of art popular in the USSR at the time, and it depicted pretty accurate, politically tinted scenes of just like home life or like productive countrysides or people working together. And it wasn't particularly rigid and confined, but when you compare it obviously to Jackson Pollock, you could see how the narrative could be created and crafted. Yeah. And that's what the CIA was really trying to lean into. They were like, oh, you got your little paintings of people doing things? we got shit all over the place. Fuck you, freedom. They somehow managed to like Team America, World Police Force, like the most abstract art they could possibly find. So Jameson also explained, like, look, matters of this sort could only have been done at 2 or 3 removes. So there wouldn't be any question of having to clear Jackson Pollock, for example, or do anything that would involve these people in the organization. And it couldn't have been any closer because most of them were people who had very little respect for the government in particular, and certainly none for the CIA. If you had to use people who considered themselves one way or another to be closer to Moscow than to Washington, well, so much the better, perhaps. So they know. They're like, Jackson Pollock can't know that he's working for the CIA, so this is all going to be a secret. There's also, there's this band called Scene Creamers, which is an Ian Sidonius band, and this just reminded me of this lyric in one of the songs, which is, I was working for the CIA and I didn't even know it, and I think this is what he's referencing. Yeah, all these people worked for the CIA and had no fucking clue. Also, that Scene Creamers album is so good. I think the song's called...
I've never heard it.
Oh, so awesome. I think the song is called Bag Incorporated, so worth listening if anybody is interested in music. So the way that they got all these people working for the CIA without even knowing it was to create this organization. And we talked about this a lot in our like Radio Free Whatever episode too, how the CIA would just create these organizations that didn't appear at first glance to be funded and associated with the US government, but they actually were. So they did this. They made this thing called the Congress for Cultural Freedom, which was something that was separate from the CIA, not officially a government branch, even though it actually was. And it was a collection of intellectuals, writers, historians, poets, and artists, all secretly funded, yes, by the CIA, and controlled by a CIA agent in secret as well. And at its height, this Congress for Cultural Freedom, which presented itself just as an independent foundation for the arts, it had offices in 35 countries and published more than 24 of its own magazines, including the most popular one, which was Encounter magazine.
Okay.
And this organization put together several exhibitions of abstract expressionism during the 1950s. And the most significant one was called the New American Painting. And that went to every major European city from 1958 to 1959. And this exhibition included works by Pollock, de Kooning, Motherwell, and others. And at one point, it was being shown in Paris. And then the Tate Gallery was supposed to take it the next day. I think that's in London, right? But they couldn't afford to move the collection from Paris to London to be at the Tate. So late in the day, it seems like out of nowhere, an American millionaire and art lover, Julius Fleischmann, steps in and he's like, I've got the cash. I love American Expressionism so much. I will pay to move it to the Tate in London. Don't worry. The cash, though, was not actually his. It was CIA money.
Whoa.
Yeah, and it came through this body called the Farfield Foundation, which Fleischmann was president of. But far from being like a millionaire's charitable arm, the foundation was, just a secret conduit for CIA funds to get moved around.
Oh my God. And why? For some reason, I don't know why paying taxes is just pissing me off lately, but I'm just like, paying taxes for this shit.
Yeah, we're like the conservative congressman, not paying taxes for this shit.
Well, it's just like, you could just give this money to fucking people.
Yeah,
Jesus.
you could give this money to poor people. Instead, there were 18 different secret CIA operations here to convince the Russians that we can make art too.
Yeah, or just give it to artists, to like a fund for people. Yeah,
everything's wrong. Everything's broken and wrong. But also, Tate didn't even know this. Tate didn't know that he was walking in with CIA cash. He did not know. The public didn't know. The artists didn't know this. But sure enough, the exhibition was transferred with CIA money to London at American taxpayers' expense to serve pro-America Cold War propaganda purposes in Europe. And Julius Fleischmann sat on the board at the International Program of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And the MoMA at this time was CIA Central.
Whoa.
Yeah. So Rockefeller, whose mom started the MoMA, was one of the biggest backers of abstract expressionism. He actually called it free enterprise painting, which is really embarrassing. So the MoMA was contracted to the Congress for Cultural Freedom to organize and curate most of its important art shows. And that place, the MoMA board at the time, was a total CIA puppet show, man. William Paley, the president of CBS Broadcasting and a founding father of the CIA, sat on the members board of the museum's international program. There's John Hay Whitney, who served in the agency's wartime predecessor, the OSS, which we talked about also in our CIA episode. And that he sat on the board of the MoMA as the chairman. There was Tom Braden, also the first chief of the CIA's International Organizations Division, and he was executive secretary of the museum in 1949.
Whoa.
Yes. So this kind of gets us to the 1960s. By the second half of the 1900s now, art really starts to take hold, not as a cultural institution, but as a financial investment. And I think this is really harkening back to the days of how art, maybe used to work, right, in those gallery dealer days. But also, I think it really starts to reflect how we interact with art today, like how you were talking about. It's like, oh, it's just ways for rich people to have money sitting around, right? And this is really where this mentality emerged. So in 1969, Sotheby's auction house launched the Sotheby's Institute of Art, which was supposed to educate people about the business side of art. And Sotheby's had existed as an auction firm in London, obviously since 1744. It was around for a long time. But it wasn't until the 1950s that they switched their focus to art dealing specifically. And by the end of the 1900s, attending an auction started to become like this glamorous high society event. It became a vehicle of social domination. Rich people could basically go out, publicly spend a fuck ton of money in a way that conveyed to other people, like, look, I am powerful and I am economically dominating you. And this is when we start to see these world records for the sale of art pieces getting placed and broken and placed and broken and placed and broken. And most likely because people want to publicly just show off how much money they have and how great their taste is in front of their peers. It's more of a social thing than about the actual value of the art piece. And as art prices start to go up higher and higher and higher because of this, the wealthy also start to realize, like, hey, buying and selling art could be a great financial tool. If I can buy it now, if the art prices are still going up, I can sell them later at a huge profit. So this will be a way for me to store money and also to make money. And this is when art, becomes a true financial asset class rather than just a collectible for rich people who are bored. So basically, the way this would work, for example, say some rich guy buys a Van Gogh for a fuck ton of money because he wants to show off how much money he has. So then everyone else with the Van Gogh is like, oh shit, that Van Gogh sold for how much? I can up the price of my Van Gogh. So now all of a sudden, Van Goghs are super popular and elite and hard to access and worth a ton of money. So then they become a status symbol. So then they're worth even more. And now their value is just established forever. So by the 1970s, rich people are all on board with this art as an investment thing. They're really seeing the hustle here. And David Bellingham, who's the director of Sotheby's Art Business Masters program, says, if I had to choose one thing when thinking about the art market of the 1970s, it would be how art developed as an alternative investment asset. So this is fucking major. And Sotheby's says it was during this decade that investors started looking at the benefits of collecting art, and art responded by raising its prices. In 1972, the Met made a record-breaking and controversial purchase of a $1 million Greek vase, and Julian Schnaub's paintings from a sold-out 1979 Mary Boone solo show doubled in price in just 2 years. So 1970s, we see this rapid acceleration in the value of art pieces. And one of the most interesting stories, I think, from this era is the story of Robert and Ethel Skull. So this was this couple. They were kind of rough around the edges. They were definitely nouveau riche, new money. They owned a taxi company in New York. And in the 1950s and 60s, they had spent their time buying up works of then emerging abstract expressionists, minimalists, and pop artists. So 1950s and 60s, they're buying art for little bits of money here. We're talking $100, $1,000, not a lot of money, but they're buying a lot of it. And on October 18th, 1973, they put 50 works from their personal collection up for sale at Sotheby's. And they sold for a total of $2.2 million, which at the time, that's in 1973 money, was unheard of. This is a fortune, right? And the return on investment for this was massive. They had a painting by Cy Twombly, for example. They originally purchased it for $750. It sold for $40,000. They had a Jasper Johns work, a double white map. They bought that in 1965 for around $10,000. That was a higher ticket item. Less than 10 years later, it sold for $240,000.
Whoa.
A Robert Rauschenberg piece titled Thaw was bought in 1958 for $900. It sold that day for $85,000.
Whoa.
And after it sold, Rauschenberg confronted Robert Skull. He shoved him and he screamed at him. He was like, you exploited my labor. Fuck you.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like, I sold you that piece for cheap, and look what you turn around and do. So art critic Barbara Rose wrote in New York Magazine the next month that the sale marked the day the art world collapsed. And she titled that piece, Profit Without Honor.
Whoa.
Yeah. And what strikes me as interesting here is that this is what art dealers have been doing for centuries. So it seems like the art world actually isn't mad at people profiting off of art. Not the upper crust elites anyway. You know, the artists like Rauschenberg, sure, they've always been mad at the dealers and the galleries and the private collectors profiting off of their work. But the rest of the art world, this is what they've always been up to. They were just mad that these two trashy taxi cab company owners, one who didn't even have a high school degree, figured out their game and decided to play along.
Whoa.
Yes. So as for art critic Barbara Rose, you know, she was wrong when she said it was the day the art world collapsed. It wasn't the day the art world collapsed. It was the day the art world officially became what we know it as today. A high commodity trading market where rich people get richer.
Wow.
So this brings us to the 80s. And in the 80s, you know, at this point, the art world is fucking going. So by 1988, there's this ArtNet price database. It tracked 18 different auction houses in the United States and around 8,000 artists. That's who it was keeping track of. And this is relevant for later. You know, but this is kind of a lot of people. We see this interest emerging, not just in like dead artists from classic and antiquity eras, but also in living artists, right? We saw these two taxi cab people just go around and buy art from living artists, and they were able to turn it for a profit, flip it for a fortune. So we have these contemporary artists making art today who are now, you know, worth paying attention to. Like if we looked at what Robert and Ethel Skoll did, they paid attention to these up and coming artists. So all these other rich people are like, fuck, we got to pay attention to the contemporary artists too. We can really make money here. So Alan Schwartzman, the chairman of Sotheby's Fine Art Division, says there was no market for contemporary art in the 70s, but by the 80s, art began being filtered through the eyes of these dealers who largely championed brash, bold, and invincible works by people like Julian Schnabel, Anselm Kiefer, and Robert Longo, all of whom are still alive today. So these, at the time, in the 80s, were young, up-and-coming artists. And by the 1990s, we saw income inequality growing in a significant way, right? This is shortly after Reagan's bullshit era of Reaganomics, trickle-down economics. We see income and wealth disparities growing. We see the rich getting richer. And as the rich get richer, we see demand for artwork also dramatically increasing. They have more money they can spend, and they want to spend it on shit that's going to make them even richer. So we've got this upper echelon of the art market that's the people who've been wealthy for a while. And they become increasingly sophisticated about which pieces they want to buy, in which genres, because they're anticipating significant price premiums, things that'll go up in value. They've been doing this a while. But then we also have these kind of rank and file rich who are gravitating to what experts call like the next best thing, the most available thing. And that would be work by contemporary artists, living or recently dead at the time. And these pieces vastly outnumbered the classics. These were readily available, there was a lot of shit, and there was people who could get in on the game. So according to the sociologist Olav Velthuis, the art market benefits from this income and wealth inequality because newly minted billionaires end up making huge art purchases to announce that they've officially made it on like the scene. And in 1998, Christie's was purchased by Francois Pinault, the owner of European luxury retail conglomerate Kering, whose brands include Gucci, Saint Laurent, and Balenciaga. So they're like, oh, fuck, the rich in the 90s are getting ultra fucking rich, and we're going to cater to them. And that's kind of the direction the art market starts to go. So by the year 2008, for example, Warhol prints from 1963 were selling for over 10 times what they had just a few years prior in 1999.
Whoa.
In just 9 years' time, we're seeing the value of this shit just going up, 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 up. And by 2012, remember those numbers for the ArtNet price database that were tracked, you know? Back in the 1980s, there were 18 auction houses and 8,000 artists. By 2012, it was tracking 600 auction houses and 90,000 artists.
Whoa.
So when you consider the fact that the Broad, right, the privately funded Los Angeles Museum that opened in 2015 by Eli and Edith Broad, which were two really prominent collectors in the emerging class of contemporary, like mega buyers of art, when you consider that that became one of the 15 most attended American museums in its first year open, and it's grown its audience every year by 12 to 15%, you really see that the culture of how people are engaging with art is shifting to be more focused on artists who are alive. Artists who are alive and making art, and people can't get enough of it. And then you want to know, like, okay, well, if there's this huge rise in interest in contemporary art, like, are people actually buying more art then? And yeah, it's true. If you look at inflation-adjusted auction results from over the past 30 years, all signs point to yes, there's just this increase in people buying art. Artists in particular born after 1945 have seized like more of the auction market share than any other segment in the past 3 decades. So in 1988, those artists represented just 0.8% of total art sales. Like those would have been like contemporary or recent artists, right? But by 2018, it was like 14%. So it's just really becoming increasingly more collectible to buy works from people who are still alive. And of the remaining categories of fine art, only post-war increased its market share over this time frame, right? So from 12.5% in 1988 to nearly 30% in 2018. So this is like really, really huge. And this kind of brings us to now. Okay, so when we get to the now era, we actually get to a lot of the stuff you mentioned at the beginning of the episode when I was like, what do you think about art? Like all the things about like, it's kind of like a way for people to launder money. You got all those rich guys with the art. You got the Damien Hirst shit. What's going on? And this is really when a few concepts emerge, you know, in particular, art as an investment strategy, really. We saw this start to be something people thought about in the 1970s, but now it really is something that if you're a rich person, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. So Thomas Saito, the former chairman of Impressionist and Modern Art at Christie's, says, you know, when I started out 30 years ago, millionaires had boats and jets, but didn't necessarily have any art at all. For the very wealthy today, it's not fine to not be interested in art. So he's like, yeah, in 30 years, you know, this has changed majorly. Like now, if you got a little bit of money, you're investing in art. So with these rapidly increasing values, art has shifted in the public role to that of a commodity to be held and traded for a profit when the time is right. And we see this replicated in the NFT market as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Majorly. It was just like a weird way to store and transfer and launder money. Basically, art is now viewed the same way that bonds or equities or real estate is viewed. It's just a place to put your cash. And sometimes this even extends to, being a way to hide or launder money. So laundering money is like a major issue in the art world. And one of the reasons why it's so easy to launder money through art is that art exists as this like semi-opaque gray industry. Like the art world accommodates people who want to be anonymous. They accommodate people who want to make large cash purchases. They accommodate people who just want to do high value transactions in general. And when Mexico passed a law in the early 2010s that was like, all right, look, if you're selling art now, you've got to disclose more information about these large art transactions. And they also limited the amount of cash that could be spent on a single transaction. All of a sudden, the art market crashed, dropped 70% in less than 1 year. And people suspect because, you know, the primary buyers of art before that were probably people in the cartel who were just using the art market to launder their money and make it clean.
Wow.
Yeah. So Mexico was actually pretty ahead of the game passing laws to try to regulate this stuff. This is stuff, though, that happens all over the world, right? So how does this work? Well, you've got these places like the Geneva Free Port, which is a location where artwork can be stored to avoid taxes. It can be stored there to avoid import taxes or like taxes as an asset class, whatever you want to do. So if you're a shady person doing shady illegal things, no judgment, let's say you have $10 million that you earned through less than legal means though, you need to make that $10 million look legitimate and clean, right? Otherwise, people are going to wonder how you reported $30,000 of income on your taxes but are driving around in a Maserati, right? This is why people launder money. They need to take dirty money and they need to make it look like it came from a good source. Like if you've watched Breaking Bad, this is why they opened the car wash.
I think about that every time I go to the car wash, even though I've only seen like maybe the first couple episodes of that show because it stresses me out too much.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of it, but it is a really stressful show. It seems like there was this era of television where everybody was like, TV's finally good. But the way in which it was good is just that it was like excessively brutal and devoid of humanity. And I was just like,
I don't like this.
Yeah, I don't like it either. My favorite era of TV is actually this era of TV called Blue Sky Entertainment, which is really cheesy and over the top, like corny, and it's TV shows like Psych or like Pushing Daisies.
I love Pushing Daisies. Yes. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, I love
I haven't finished the show yet. I need to finish it.
It's ridiculously cute. It's a very twee show.
I was thinking like they need to bring this back. I want a nice show.
Yeah, goth and twee, the combo.
I need like, I don't know, maybe like I don't know. Actually, there's shows that I like that are kind of like that. I feel like I've been watching, I like kind of feel good shows.
I love a feel good show.
Like Extraordinary Lawyer Woo.
Oh, I haven't watched that.
It's good.
Oh, okay. I've been watching News Radio. which is wild because Joe Rogan's on it. And I'm pretty sure he just plays Joe Rogan. Like, he's awful in the show, too.
Yeah, I've also just been, I like watching anime, so
Yes.
but I love character development. And, like, I've watched, like, fucking 700 episodes of Naruto or something crazy. I love the character development.
Okay, so I love this. Blue Sky Television, bring it back. But in the meantime, I think we all remember, yes, the era of just, like, excessively brutal TV, where if you love a character, they're gonna get their head cut off in front of
And
you,
they need
or
to
something.
like Sopranos, they gotta launder the money.
Yes,
That's
and
why they
it's
have the garbage trucks.
The garbage trucks, the car washes, people are laundering money. Yes. So if you are a Soprano or a Breaking Bad man, I don't remember his name, and you got all this money and you need to get it clean, you can go to a private art auction and you can just drop like $10 million cash on a Picasso in Geneva. You're there and you're like, nobody here cares where my $10 million came from. So you get this Picasso, for example, you store it at the nearby Geneva Freeport, you just store it there, and all of a sudden, you don't have to pay taxes on it. Then, anonymously, you can sell the painting to a third party. You also anonymously purchased it. Nobody knows you have this asset. You sell the painting to a third party, you have the new buyer pick it up from that same Freeport. And now, all of a sudden, you have $10 million of clean money that you did not earn through shady business dealings, like being in the mob or selling meth. You just earned it from selling a painting you happen to own. And nobody knows when you got the painting or where you got the painting. For all they know, you found the painting in the trash and just came up on a $10 million asset.
I would just be like, I found it at the thrift.
Okay, it's interesting you say that because we're going to get into that.
Oh my God.
I know, right? You're really hitting, like, you're really foreshadowing. You're hitting all the foreshadowing points and I love it. So, in 2013, The Economist was like, I think that there's $100 billion worth of U.S.-owned art sitting at the Geneva Freeport alone.
Okay, I feel like there was like an action movie that's set in one of these places that just stores art.
Probably. There's
that
a
one
lot
with
of
Robert
them.
Pattinson.
I did not know he was in an action movie. I'm intrigued.
It came out, it was by the same guy who did Inception.
Oh.
I think you would like this action movie,
would love
and I
this.
do believe it has to do with that place that you were talking about, but I don't know for sure. But
Okay,
I will send it to you later.
I'm going to Google Robert Pattinson action movie. I'm going to watch that. Maybe tonight. But yeah, so these Geneva Freeport sites where The Economist's like, hey, I'm pretty sure they got $100 billion worth of art that Americans own that they should be taxed on and this should be like regulated. It's sitting there because, yeah, you have the potential to launder money through it. And also you can just use it as a tax haven. So there are all these other methods of potentially scamming the system through art too. Like there's this convicted Brazilian money launderer and former banker named Edmar Cid Ferreira who tried to smuggle an $8 million Basquiat painting into the United States from Brazil via the Netherlands by falsifying the import documents and claiming it was just worth $100.
Whoa.
And yeah, so he was like, I'm smuggling this Basquiat and no big deal.
Honestly, I feel like you could, like, some art, you could be like, yeah, this seems like it's worth $100.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to really know about art if you were, like, working customs.
Yeah.
To open it. I don't think I would know. There's also the way that Hobby Lobby ended up with an ISIS artifact for its Museum of the Bible. Do you know about this?
No, I know that Hobby Lobby is bad.
Yeah, Hobby Lobby is like super religious and they were doing this project called the Museum of the Bible. So basically in 2017, the Wall Street Journal reported that ISIS was paying people to dig for artifacts in Iraq. So when a digger found an object, they then sold it to ISIS for this really, really, really low price. Then ISIS sold the piece to an independent middleman who would then smuggle the item out of the country into like Lebanon or Turkey. There, they would store it in a European warehouse and just wait for like a Western buyer to come buy it. And then the Western buyer could buy it clean of any ties from ISIS. So the U.S. Department of Justice ended up seizing this cuneiform tablet that was purchased by Hobby Lobby for the Museum of the Bible. And it ended up being, like from ISIS. And this is just such like a shit show, late capitalist American thing. I can't even believe it's a real sentence.
Can I say that? Why didn't Hobby Lobby craft their own museum?
Like they've got the tools.
They've got all the crafts.
That's the whole thing.
So I recently went to the Krishna Museum here in LA, and they have like all of these dioramas that were made by like, it is like Disney level. and you go through and they make these like wild dioramas of like the Krishna, and like the end looks like it the infinity room at the Broad.
So it's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, Hobby Lobby needs to be on that level.
But I'm just like, Hobby Lobby should just do that with all their crafts. Make it like the cool Krishna museum.
Instead, they're buying things from ISIS. So, like, this is such an American problem. It's like, ISIS exists because of the United States. Hobby Lobby is existing because of the United States. Our, like, Christo-fascism, Museum of the Bible shit, it's very United States. It's, like, such a confluence.
There has to be a meme somewhere of them shaking the hands.
Yes, of ISIS and Hobby Lobby and Jesus blessing it. It's, like, so America. I love it. It's perfect. So, also, there's this guy, Thomas Christ, not related to the Hobby Lobby Museum of the Bible, with ISIS things in it. Thomas Christ, just a man with that name. Just a man with that name. He's a board member of the Basel Institute on Governance, which is a Swiss nonprofit that studies like money laundering through art. And he's like, yeah, the art market is an ideal playing ground for money laundering. And Michael Martin, who's the head of forensic and anti-money laundering services at the Deloitte Luxembourg, is like, art is one of the asset classes that obviously lends itself to money laundering. And in 2009, the International Monetary Fund, not great people, but they estimated the amount of art available for laundering through the financial system was worth 2.7% of the total global GDP, or $1.6 trillion.
What the fuck?
Massive. And there's also these like high profile economists like Nouriel Roubini of New York University Stern School. And people like this have been basically begging the art world to please just regulate art sales. So in 2015, Roubini was like, whether we like it or not, art is used for tax avoidance and tax evasion. It can be used for money laundering. You can buy something for $500,000, not show a passport, and ship it. Plenty of people are using it for laundering. And despite this, some people in the United States are like, are they? Are they though? And all these experts are like, they are definitely laundering money. So there's this one Swiss businessman in particular, Yves Bouvier, who is nicknamed the King of Freeports. And remember, Freeports is that Geneva Freeport where they store all the stuff.
Yes.
So this guy was the King of Freeports. And he was arrested in Monaco on suspicion of manipulating art prices and laundering money. Also, fun fact, I just remembered that Monaco is one of the places that has the safest traffic in the world from our episode on driving.
Interesting.
I learned so much from our own podcast. It's amazing. So this guy, Yves Bouvier, King of Freeports, owned a company that specialized in the transportation and storage of fine art and luxury items. He was also working as an art dealer at the time, but he was not disclosing that he was basically an art dealer and flipping art from one anonymous seller to another buyer and just skimming money off the top of each transaction.
Honestly, kind of. I'm kind of like, Kenna, it's fucked up how you're like, yep, if I was going to do evil capitalism, that's what I'd do.
I mean, you did say that if you were around during the Italian Renaissance, you would steal art from nuns. So I feel like Kenna's good at this.
I would make horny art for nuns.
To then make them uncomfortable, have them give it back to you, and then
resell it.
Yes. Yeah, okay, I get it. But yeah, he was basically like, I'm an art consultant, but he was actually just an art flipper. So this one guy sold him a painting for $93.5 million to Yves Bouvier, King of Freeports. Then Yves Bouvier, King of Freeports, I love this name, goes to this other guy and he's like, yeah, I got the painting for you. The guy's selling it for $118 million. So the guy's like, all right, here's $118 million.
Well, if it's anonymous, yeah, you don't fucking know.
You don't know. So Yves Bouvier just keeps the extra $24.5 million for himself. Cool finder's fee. But somehow the buyer ends up seeing the original invoice from the seller. And is like, this wasn't $118 million. This was $93.5 million. What the fuck? And Yves Bouvier was like, oh, whoa, I never said I wasn't an art dealer. And he ends up getting sued. And all this becomes public. And in doing all this, everybody realizes that he did this so many times that just off of like secret art flipping alone, he made $2 billion. What? Yes. This is like rich dude playground, this art world.
Okay, to me it's like they don't care about like the IRS government. It's just like, like who cares about these paintings? But you get audited on your tax return and they're like, you didn't keep receipts.
Yeah, you have $45,000 in income from being self-employed in the United States and they come down on you with like the hammer of God. But these people are like, well, it was $100 million.
That just shows that the system really is, well, like, Well, that's for, like, art is for rich people. Like, only
Yeah.
rich people do art. We don't fuck with them.
Yeah,
like,
we don't fuck with rich people.
Like, they're the people who are in control of the government. Why would
Yeah.
we fucking do that?
Exactly. Yeah, but meanwhile, people in other countries are really trying to pay attention to this. Like, Pierre Valentin is the head of art law practice at a London law firm called Constantine Cannon. He's like, buying things at auctions can be anonymous, and now you got a tangible, movable asset. You can put art on a private plane, and you can take it anywhere. And once somebody does this and purchases this art, the art can disappear for years, even decades, just ending up somewhere like a Freeport, or even ending up somewhere more bizarre, like the suburbs of Philadelphia. So in 2011, federal agents raided a suspected drug dealer's house, and again, no shame to the drug dealers of the world. And there they found $2.5 million in cash. Bad day for the drug dealer. But they also found 14 paintings hanging on the wall and 13 in a nearby storage unit that were all by artists like Renoir, Picasso, Salvador Dali.
Honestly, that's kind of sick.
I know. I don't like rich people of any kind, but $2.5 million, I'm like, well, they just recommend you have $2 million saved for your retirement. So this drug dealer really just had his retirement set in cash, and who knows what he was going to do with the art.
Yeah, it's funny because some people will be like, like that is, like, making, like, to me, like, the really rich people are, like, hundreds of millions of
I mean, yeah, if we think about the king of Freeport to make $2 billion off art flipping alone.
Which is funny because, like, what is it, the 1% of the United States, you just have to make over $250,000?
Oh, that's for income, but for wealth, if to be in the 1%, you need to have $11 million or more to your name. Yeah.
So this guy isn't even wealthy.
He's
well, actually, no, he has the assets. Sorry.
He's got the assets. He's got the paintings. I do want to come out and say my bias is that I like him more than the king of Freeports, just because
he's enjoying the art.
He's enjoying the dolly. No, I don't know. He could be a good guy. He could be a bad guy. My instinct is to defend the criminal, especially if he's not a billionaire. If he's not a billionaire and he's a criminal, my instinct is to be like, how bad was he?
I think it's just like, it would just be, I just think it's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's the same part of me that when I drive by someone getting arrested on the side of the road, my instinct is to scream, let him go. That's how I feel about the drug dealer with the $2.5 million in cash. The 14 Renoir, Picasso, and Dali's just hanging on his house in suburban Philadelphia. And the 33 just got stored in a storage unit, which I imagine is like one of those like self-lock-up things, you know?
Okay, I was talking about like drug dealers back in the day. You go over their house, they have like...
this is what I'm picturing.
Yeah, you just like go over to your drug dealer's house and you're just like, is that a fucking Picasso? And they're like, yeah, man, you want to see my iguana too?
Yeah. Maybe that's why I'm picturing this. Okay, so whatever. So this guy whose house gets raided, he's like, oh, I purchased the paintings from this gallery near Philadelphia's Museum Row. It's a super established gallery. And yeah, you caught me. I was using them to launder money. Like, yeah. So the cops are like, we gotta go talk to this gallery who sold you this thing. Just gonna go on record now, ACAB, right? So, but they send this guy in with an undercover agent, and the guy's like, this is not an undercover police agent. This is my friend who's also a drug dealer, and she's got lots of money. Drug money she wants to spend on art. So she is like, yeah, that's me, Mr. Gallery Man. And she says, like, point blank, she's like, I'm willing to invest in stuff like this, but I don't know. I don't know how to sell this. Cars, other things I can get rid of easy. Like this, I'm nervous about. And the gallery owner is like, it's different than selling a car. Car has to have registration, title, this and that and everything. These are nothing. These could have been your grandmother's. You follow me? And she's like, so I can say, hey, this is stuff that I inherited, not that I bought. And he then responds, right. I found it at a thrift store. They were $10 a piece. So she returns a week later and she's got $20,000 in a brown paper bag that smells like weed. And she's like, yeah, it smells like weed because I keep it with my weed. And at this point, I just really have to say the gallery owner sounds super chill. He's like, yeah, that's cool. I don't care. Also, I'm not going to invoice you for this. And she's like, no invoices? Cool. No receipt. No invoice. I'm good with that. That's the way I like to do business, which just sounds like such an undercover fucking cop way to talk. Like, it's just so bad. So then, he's cool though. He's like, we never saw you before. Like, that's fine. No big deal. Honestly, I kind of love the gallery guy because he just seems down as fuck. He's just like, I don't care. Your business, your life, just like, I don't care. But you know, the gallery owners, they're not innocent in all this. They're all complicit in the confines of capitalism.
Yeah, well, just like, wouldn't you have to pay, like, if you're the company, don't you have to put that on the books or something?
It's probably doing some sketchy bookkeeping too, you know. But you can just see how, even if I want to find the drug dealer and the gallery owner very likable, that's my instinct, you can see how doing business this way just lets a lot of rich people off the hook for doing things like paying their taxes or paying child support or paying alimony, because it allows them to dramatically undervalue their assets, underreport their earnings, and just kind of move money around secretly. And then when it's convenient, be like, I don't have any, but they have a fuck ton of assets. So objectively, yeah, it's not great, you know, for people. It's not fair.
Yeah, I remember, like, I think it was Elizabeth Warren who was like, wanted to, I think in like Europe or some other countries, like, you know how here we base income off, or taxes off, like, income, stocks, and she's like, well, also I think that you should tax assets.
That's a wealth tax, and a wealth tax could be massive. Like, if you tax like the top 1% on wealth alone, it could fund like free college every single year.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, well, how much is this yacht worth? How much are all your Picassos worth? Like, how much, like, instead of just being how much did you make, it's how much is all the shit you have worth? Because, like,
it goes up in value every year, too.
Because I bet, like, for some people, like, I could imagine, like, if you're like an Elon Musk, you'd be like, I only make $750,000 a year on the books.
Right.
But exactly. It has, like, you know, billions of dollars in assets.
In assets, exactly. So, the UN Office on Drugs and Crime in 2019, they did report that around $3 billion of money circulating in the art world is definitely just associated with financial crimes, like money laundering, tax evasion, whatever. And lately, Europe and finally the US have started expanding laws to crack down on this type of money laundering. But money laundering is not the only type of corruption in artwork that can occur. You know, there's other corruption too, which I think is somehow more interesting to me. So today, the way things are supposed to work in the art world is like this. Private collectors build up their collections. So we're talking mostly rich people who go to these fancy auctions and galleries, right, and just buy art. Then museums try to woo these private collectors to be like patrons of their museum. They're like, hey, lend us your art, donate some of your art, or let us take care of your art and we can display it. And these U.S. museums rely like a lot on private philanthropy. So wooing the collectors is a really important part of their business model. So to woo the private collectors, museums get really competitive. And when they start to get competitive, they'll usually end up offering like super rich art collector people just a seat on their board. And that's major, because if you have a seat on the board of a museum, you're helping with all the major decisions about what happens to the museum. What artists are coming in, what pieces you're buying, what you're displaying. You're really making decisions. So
you can make decisions about what artists are hot right now and drive those prices up higher.
Yes, you could. So if you're an artist, for example, and a private collector likes your work, there's a good chance they could end up on a museum board where they now have a say in which pieces are being brought into the museum, which could include your work. So basically, if one rich guy likes you, you're in with the whole art world. And from there, if the museum starts collecting work from one artist, the price of that artist's work rises, which means the guy who collected all of your artwork, who's now on the board, well, the value of his art collection just got a lot higher.
Yeah. Oh, yes. That's just what I was thinking.
That's exactly what you explained, because his collection is stacked with your work that the museum that he works at now decided is more valuable than other people's work. So you're definitely beginning to see how the system could be rife with corruption. Imagine, for example, you're an unscrupulous person and you have a lot of money. Like most, people who have a lot of money are unscrupulous people. So let's say you discover some unknown artist. We'll call them Eddie Spaghetti, because that's what I came up with when I was taking notes on this. And you're able to buy 20 of these Eddie Spaghetti paintings for $1,000 each. No big deal, right? You're rich. You blow $20K on Eddie Spaghetti. It's not a big deal to you.
And Eddie Spaghetti's probably like, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, fuck yeah, I got $20K. Spends it all on drugs with a name like Eddie Spaghetti. He's going to the Philadelphia drug dealer's house. That's the tie in there. But whatever.
He's like, shit, man, is that a Picasso?
Yeah, Eddie Spaghetti's holding the drug dealer's iguana, staring at the Picasso. Eddie Spaghetti likes to party. So, meanwhile, you're the rich guy, and you've landed yourself a seat, on the board at a major museum. And you're like, how do I make my art collection even more valuable? So you say to the board, like, hey, you know whose work we should bring in here? This new up-and-coming artist, Eddie Spaghetti. And maybe they're like, yeah, fine, we want to keep you happy. We like that you're loaning us your Picassos and your Renoirs and your Manets. So we'll bring in this Eddie fucking Spaghetti shit too if it means we get the Picassos. Well, now, the second that happens, the value of all Eddie Spaghetti work just went up, like tenfold. And he's now an in-demand artist. And your 20 Eddie Spaghetti paintings, they went from being worth a total of $20,000 to a total of $200,000. But you created all of the demand yourself. So there's also this issue that like art galleries play in this kind of shit too. Like art galleries keep their sale prices of artwork private and even select which private collectors get which art. And they will choose preferred art collectors over other people. And this is, again, where most primary art sales, which is art bought directly from the artist, happens. You don't just go to Eddie Spaghetti's fucking studio most of the time. Eddie Spaghetti ends up knowing a guy who knows somebody who owns a gallery, and he gets into the gallery, and that's where you're going to buy his work, right? So odds are, yeah, you bought your Eddie Spaghetti art pieces from this private gallery. Just like you on the museum board, who are also a collector, have a vested financial interest in maintaining the value of Eddie Spaghetti art, so do the galleries. Because if galleries take on a client whose art isn't selling, they can't just lower the price of the art without tanking the value of their most prized clients' art portfolios. They run the risk of never having the clients come in again. So now everyone is involved in this conspiracy to keep this one artist's art worth a fuck ton of money.
Who can I be thinking of that this could maybe have happened to?
My arch nemesis, Damien Hirst?
Exactly.
Yes.
Is it really? I mean, who can say what is good?
Who can say what is good? Also, for legal purposes, Damien Hirst is very wealthy, and everything I'm saying about him is a joke. So he doesn't sue me.
No, I'm just, people have said, speculation.
Yes. So you got this little conspiracy of people determined to keep some rando artist's work in high demand, and all of it serves to solely make rich people richer, and it does not break the law. So some people who are more conspiratorial minded do go as far as to say that all modern art is a scam in this regard, like they intentionally flood the market with low effort, easy to produce works of art that make for prime asset management portfolio builders.
Like Andy Warhol. That's who I think of. Like,
I mean, I think it's very conspiracy theory because I think it falls just into that camp of I hate modern art because I think my kid could draw it, thinking like they're like nobody could possibly see value in this modern art. And I think that's a stretch. I think people do like modern art. I think it's popular because people do enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the art, like if I could a lot of those pieces, like if I could afford it, I'd be like, fuck yeah, that'd be cool to have in my living room.
Right. I think though more it's just that people like modern art, and because it's popular, people are more likely to make it because they know they can sell it. So that's why it feels like modern art is flooding the market, because the art world is peak capitalism. They're creating a product. As much as we want to pretend like it's something of deep cultural significance, it's a reflection on contemporary society, most of the art that we're exposed to it because it's been placed there as a product and a commercial asset to be consumed. This all comes to like this idea of art serving the moneyed class. And there's no denying that the art world has been closely linked to the world of finance and big business, often at the expense of the artists themselves. Like on top of issues like there's a massive lack of diversity in art, we see ongoing issues with artist exploitation. We see issues with art just like being the formation of another white guy boys club. And we see people like Damien Hirst able to acquire a net worth of $700 million in the contemporary art market because he started out a rich white dude. That's how he started. So it just is this whole market that favors rich white guys. And the only way you can really get in if you're not a rich white guy is you hope somebody who owns a gallery just kind of likes you. And that's how the world goes. So I think the final conclusion is that, like all things, when art is commodified under capitalism, it becomes devoid of all original meaning. This is something that we've been dealing with for centuries, dating all the way back to the Italian Renaissance art dealer who was deemed a traitor and a two-bit thief for just trying to profit off of art. Like, maybe the lesson in all of this is that if you actually want art to be something of cultural significance, There's no way it can exist as that and also be a commodity that's bought and sold. The two are at odds. They're competing interests. And maybe also the story of art as an industry is a story of labor exploitation, like every single industry.
Yeah, okay. I'm just thinking back to Eddie Spaghetti. What if, like, damn, he only made $20,000 and some dude made 200,000, and then he just, and his work keeps going up. But let's say something happens to Eddie Spaghetti where, like, he can't make any more art.
Right.
Damn, dude, you only made 20
You made 20 grand, and these rich people get to make millions of dollars off your work into perpetuity. And that's how you see why Rauschenberg confronted the taxi cab guy and was just like, fuck you. Like, fuck this, you're exploiting me. You know? So the story of art, yeah, it's a story of labor exploitation. It's a story of capitalism. It's a story of rich men not paying taxes, of the good old boys club. It's the story of the CIA trying to fight communism. It's just the story of capitalism run unbridled, unchecked, and amok in the world. And I think in that context, I think maybe I finally get art. Oh. So what do you think, Kenna? What do you think about art?
Wow. Yeah, I definitely see it as just like, wow, commodity.
I mean, I feel like given the backlash I got on TikTok when I was like, I don't care if the Van Gogh gets ruined, I feel like people are going to be really mad to hear that, because I think we do have this hyper romanticized view of artwork. But like I said in the beginning, I think like you can't maintain that hyper romanticized view of what artwork means and what it represents, you know, while also viewing it through the context of the function it serves in society and how we even ended up at the point where we're looking at a Van Gogh anyway.
Yeah, I feel like I did not go to art school, so I am an art stupid.
Not an art student, an art stupid.
Yeah.
I like it.
But to me, it's like art as something you sell that's like an Andy Warhol, a Picasso, like stuff like that is different from like artistry, the feeling of art, like the feeling, to me, there's like, I guess you would say the French call it je ne sais quoi, you know, like there is like a feeling, and like some people don't get it from visual art. Maybe some people get it from like doing stuff, like, or talking to their friends, or like, you know, it's like a moment when, to me, that you like experience outside of yourself that is special and possibly unnameable to a different person. Like, yeah. I would say akin to like a spiritual experience.
I agree with that. I think that art is a spiritual thing. I think it's a thing we have like a personal connection with. And I think like, to me, when I think about Van Gogh, like if you know anything about Van Gogh, right, he was tortured. He suffered from a lot of mental health issues. He really had a difficult life. And when I think about Van Gogh, this person I don't know, like, yeah, he's just a white guy whose paintings have been hyper commodified. But when he was making that art, he was struggling. He was having a hard time. And when you think about the time and effort he put into learning the craft and learning the skill and looking at his finished paintings, you're like, I see value in that. And that's important. But also, like, you can't see that and not also think about all of the other hundreds of thousands of Van Goghs whose art we never saw because some dealer didn't see a way to make a profit off of it back in the 1800s.
Yeah, I think that art and like artists is a way to make a certain class of people like quote unquote more special. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, oh, you're special, you're an artist, you're an auteur, you have a vision. And to me, that discounts many of the so-called like quote unquote like mundane in life, which I think can actually be really fucking special. And like that's why stupid fucking American Beauty, the fucking plastic bag, like beauty can be seen in a lot of fucking different things.
Yes.
And I think that like this plate, like it is a way to place certain things, certain experiences that are considered heroic. Like, you know, we in our book club we were talking about like a lot of artwork, or like not artwork, like many cultures celebrated like heroics and art, like hunters and like expeditions, even when the culture didn't even have that anymore as like a day-to-day type thing. Like to me, it's valuing like, you know, heroics, and when to me, or like these like experiences that are supposed to be these like,
it's exceptionalism.
Exceptionalism.
You're like, look at this special person.
Instead of being like okay with like what do you call it when you're like a day when you're just feeling good, and like what's that feeling that's like being wise and like feeling at ease?
I don't know, but it reminds me of High Fidelity.
Yeah, I don't
Do you
know.
remember in High Fidelity
I
the part I'm
don't.
talking about?
The only part where I remember that he's like, you fucking smell like patchouli.
Oh, yeah. Okay, not that part.
But, like...
A different part. No, I think you'll like this. I think it explains what you're talking about. He's talking about his relationship with Laura, the woman of his dreams, right? And he's like, the thing is, with all these other women that I dated, it was super exciting. It was super emotionally intense. It was, super hot and cold and high intensity. And with Laura, it was never any of those things. It was never particularly exciting. It was never particularly intense or passionate, which sounds like it'd be boring or bad, but it wasn't. It was just good. And it was always just good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And, like, it's funny because as a person with ADHD, because your dopamine levels, like, are not the same. Like, you're just like, I need the rush to just feel normal. So, like, I do get that, like heightening experiences, like, for me, like, feel like I need them to get, but also, like, just in a more of, like, a philosophical sense, I feel like this place of rewarding, like, heroic acts, special, like, I'm using air quotes, special people, special artists who are, like, more special than everyone else, is really maybe not so great. Or maybe we need to, sit back and think, like, why is this, like, vision valued over something else? And we make that decision in our culture, what we value. It's not intrinsic. It's just like money, like with this art that we're talking about. Like, it is a value that we make. Right. It is created. It is not intrinsic in the thing because, I think about it in fashion. There's something that someone's like, I love this dress. It's my favorite dress ever. And I'm like, oh, like.
Right. It's relative.
I fucking hate this.
It's an individual experience and it's relative.
But I do think that this feeds into capitalism, especially like the Ayn Rand view of like, there's a John Galt, there's a special person who knows better than anyone else. Like with art, like who has the vision and who can express it. And I would say that everyone does, which is like, it's easy to say, but it's really radical to believe.
Yeah, I think that that's true. And I think it's hard for people to deconstruct things that we thought, because I think sometimes those of us who don't fit into mainstream society, like viewing ourselves as an artist is a way to feel okay about not being able to succeed on the day-to-days in a system of capitalism.
Oh, for sure.
We're like, well, I'm different, I'm an artist, and it's kind of a way for us to comfort ourselves and be like, there is a place for me in this world. And I get how if you're somebody who's thought that way and found comfort in yourself as the archetype of the artist, like, it can be difficult to look at that archetype and be like, fuck, this archetype's bullshit too, and it's also a byproduct of the capitalist machine. And I think that that's like maybe a reason why a lot of people empathize so much with these famous artists whose work we see. And I think about how many people go through life thinking that, they themselves will be the famous artist one day and everything will be okay, and how maybe this ties in with like our episode we did about fame and our thoughts about like what it means to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that's like a really big thing about people feeling special. And it does remind me of the Andy Warhol thing where he's like, in the future, everyone will have 15 minutes of fame. And I'm kind of just like, wow, imagine a future where everybody is a special famous artist.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, like, when it comes to the commodification of art, there's nothing interesting or particularly exciting here about saying it, but it is true. It's just capitalism ruins everything. Can you have a real experience where you're relating to art with capitalism involved at all? Because everything you're able to even see or experience has been so filtered through the lens of what makes a better asset or a better commodity, what's the most palatable, what's the most sellable. And I think that, like, that makes it hard for us to even be exposed to things we would like. Like, maybe I would like more than long neck, small head Byzantine art, man, if I saw it. But what I see when I go to the museums is the same artist over and over again. It's always the Rothkos. It's always the Van Goghs. Mm-hmm. It's always the Manets, I can go to 100 different museums and I'll see different iterations of the same thing. Yeah. Because someone knows that it sells.
Yeah. It's hard for me because I feel like sometimes I'm like that person, like, who just like, what's your favorite type? I'm like, I like all music.
Yeah.
Like, no, but what do you not like? I'm like, there's no genre I don't like. So with art, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I like it all. But then, sometimes when you go to a museum, you're like, well, why is this considered more special than something else? That's like something that you have to think about. Like, why is this
here?
Why is this here? Why is this being venerated and something else isn't?
Exactly. I think that's the most interesting thing to think about. And I think that's what I was thinking about when I thought about the Van Gogh sunflower piece. It's like, You can't be mad that someone threw tomato soup at the Van Gogh sunflower piece. You have to look at how it's the Van Gogh sunflower piece there in that museum that is like 90% white artists, 90% men, and just a piece that we've been told for hundreds of years is special because someone we don't know said it was.
Yeah, it's like,
it's pretty. I like it.
It's pretty, but it's an asset.
It's an asset. It's an asset for the moneyed class. And I think that, I think we can't have emotionally enriched experiences if all of the media and the art we consume has to pass through that lens first. Which is why I think that I like the pieces that play into it more. I think that's why I appreciate things like Face Off. Face Off knows it's an asset. It knows it's a product. It knows that that's what it's doing. And there's something honest about that. And I like that honesty. And I relate to it. And some things explode. And I think that's cool too.
Okay. Yeah, I have to see it.
You got to see it. Okay, is that our episode on art?
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Pick Me Up, I'm Scared. If you would like to join us on Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/pickmeupimscared. For $2 a month, you can access 2 bonus episodes monthly. And also you can chat with us about what's on your mind and give us recommendations for show topics. Ooh, but if you don't want to do that, that is totally fine. We're just happy you're here.